things going here. I've got so many streams going at one time here. You get to listen to the kids down the street scream and then just walk right in front of my house and decide that they're going to start screaming. It's the world we live in today where parents literally have no control over their children. They really don't care what happens to their children. They don't discipline their children. And this is why I think we're doomed. All right. Never know, too, how many people are going to be on each platform. So just give it a couple more minutes, and then I think, if I'm not mistaken, the interview is actually going to be on Donald Trump's X account. Her Twitter account. And welcome Lena and welcome Donnie. I think it's going to be on his X account from what I've been reading. And he has been, Donald Trump has been posting today. And he's been posting some of his ads, which I think are pretty good, and I think I'll play those in a minute. But there was one thing that I wanted to talk about as people are kind of coming in and listening. This was a letter written by the European Union to Elon Musk about legal consequences of actually having this interview. And kind of making these threats to Elon Musk about, of course, what do we hear about all the time? Quote unquote, misinformation and disinformation. And so the European Commission wrote a letter to Elon Musk, about Donald Trump. And it's a really interesting letter. I'll try not to read the whole thing and bore everybody, but I think it's really important. It kind of sort of puts everything together on what's going on in the world. And when you hear people say they are doing this, it's they who are trying to hold us down, or it's they who are trying to take away our rights. This kind of puts a name and a face to who they is. And so it starts off with, "Dear Mr. Musk, I am writing to you in the context of recent events in the United Kingdom," which we'll go over that in a second, but I'm sure a lot of you have been paying attention to what's going on in the UK, where we've had some illegal migrants running around, and there's a huge influx of illegal migrants coming in based on the doings of the government bringing them in to replace people the native people in the UK, as well, obviously in Europe and North America. And in relation to the planned broadcast on your platform X of a live conversation between a U.S. presidential candidate and yourself, which will also be accessible to users in the EU. And do you notice what happens, or what he said right there in the very first sentence? Or what he didn't say? He didn't mention Donald Trump's name. And that in and of itself right there tells you something. It tells you what these people are all about. It tells you the visceral hatred they have for Donald Trump. And they can't even mention his name. You know, any normal person, anyone who actually has a legitimate concern would say, you're gonna have this debate with, or this interview with Donald Trump. We have some things that we'd like you to kind of pay attention to or focus on. They don't do that. I understand that you are currently doing a stress test of the platform. He was actually doing that earlier today. I was kind of seeing they were doing some weird testing where they had a bunch of, like 1,800,000 people, fake people, I guess they were bots, trying to figure out whether or not this thing was going to crash the system. Because I think they had done this before with Ron DeSantis and actually had some issues with crashing X. In this context, I'm compelled to remind you of the due diligence obligation set out in the Digital Services Act, as outlined in my previous letter. So he already wrote a letter to him already. As the individual entity ultimately controlling a platform with over 300 million users worldwide, of which 1/3 in the EU, that has been designated a very large online platform, you have the legal obligation to ensure X's compliance with EU law, and in particular the DSA in the EU. This notably means ensuring, on one hand, that freedom of expression, which they don't care about, and of information, including media freedom and pluralism, are effectively protected. And on the other hand, here's where the important part comes in, that all proportionate and effective mitigation measures are in place regarding the amplification of harmful content in connection with relevant events, including live streaming, which, if unaddressed, might increase the risk profile of X and generate detrimental efforts on civic discourse and public security. So in other words, what the rest of this letter basically goes into is that if you have Donald Trump on, it's going to escalate hate, and more people are going to get angry at the fact that there's a bunch of illegal immigrants running around, not only killing the citizens of the UK and the EU, basically all of Europe, and also North America. But they're coming in, they're murdering your citizens, they're taking your jobs, they're taking your tax money, they're ruining your lives. I mean, do I have to name all the horrible things that are going on? And to the point where everybody in these countries now are rising up, especially in the UK, and saying that they've had enough of what's going on. And so when they rise up, what ends up happening to them? Starmer from the UK, the Prime Minister, sends out the police like a totalitarian regime and starts to put people in jail, beating on them, and then even sending out Muslims to go around beating on people as well. There was another stabbing in the UK today. I'm not sure who did it, but can you imagine? I mean, all of us are going through this where you kind of walk around and you're constantly in fear of what might happen to you. And God forbid you mention something about that. These guys have a problem with it. So he goes on to basically this Theory Breton guy. Okay, it looks like they're going on. Bear with me here. Donald Trump is hosting his space right now. See if I can hear it. Bear with me, everybody. I want to make sure I get this set up properly here. Okay. I'm going to mute that for a second. So you could see, I'm going to go back to this notion real quick. So what these guys are essentially trying to do is, obviously they're destroying North America and Europe. They don't want you talking about it. And the person doing this stuff is this Thierry Breton guy. And Elon Musk's response was just simply bonjour. Because this guy is a French businessman, politician, and communist. That's what this guy is all about. And here, if you want to talk about who is they, who are the people that are doing this, who are the people that are destroying the EU, destroying these wonderful places in Europe, these are the people that are doing it. I'm hearing X is crashing already, is that right? I still hear it just fine. I'm going to refresh just to see if it's... Uh-oh. Yeah, this... I don't think this is going to work. I should not have done that. Damn it. I was already in. I was already in, and I refreshed. I shouldn't have done that. Yeah, I knew they were doing these stress tests, hopefully trying to get it to work, and I had a bad feeling it was gonna. They've had serious problems with spaces for a while now, and for whatever reason, just can't get it together, and haven't been able to get it together. And this is an example of that, with all the stress testing and everything. They should have known better, and I just don't think this is going to work. It's going to be looks like another failure, just like the deal with Ron DeSantis. Well, we'll come back to that in a minute. We have 7 more minutes or so before it's officially going to start. But here you go. Thierry Breton. Here's a guy who writes a letter to Elon Musk. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if these guys have something to do with trying to crash this thing as well. Because they are desperate to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't become president again. Now, I can go into a whole lot of different things related to what I think about Trump at this point, how his campaign is being run. I don't think it's being run very well. I don't think that he is the same candidate that he was in 2016. And I'm worried that he's forgetting about his original base from 2016. And if he doesn't get things together and maybe fire the people like Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles who are running his campaign right now, I think he's going to have some problems. I really do. I'm going to keep refreshing to see if I can get into this thing. Yeah, it's almost like X in its entirety crashed. And this is another problem, unfortunately, with a lot of this stuff. And it's a shame because you have YouTube who could very well handle all of this, but of course they censor everyone, and that they're just like these European Union guys trying to censor everything. And here's Keir Starmer.
And just try and whack it. Yes.
Look at this guy.
That's it. And again. Try and breathe. Relax. That's it.
There's your Labour Party, ladies and gentlemen. Let's watch this guy throw punches again.
Good. And again. That's it. And again. Try and breathe. Relax. That's it.
Yeah, real stud right there. So Keir Starmer, who's going around arresting everyone who's upset at the fact that illegal immigrants are destroying their country. And this guy, Thierry Breton, look at these guys. This is where you're putting a face to what's destroying the Europe and North America. These are the guys who are destroying everything. Okay, so apparently there's 100,000 people in there. I can't get in. Let me try this again. This sucks. Should not have gotten out. Yeah, I can't get in, so figures. See, the thing is, if I start all over again, I shut down my stream. Yeah, there is a woman. He does look like it. The Hodge twins, anyone having trouble listening? Yeah, I think a lot of people are. See, this is really... really too bad. may have to give up. Like I said, I had a feeling this was going to happen. This is very similar to what happened with Ron DeSantis. That you just cannot have a platform that really gives you everything. It looks like they shut me down too, right? So what happened? Let's see. Are you, Lane, are you talking YouTube? It looks like it's still going. Yeah, you could tell a lot of people are having problems. Let's see if... Yeah. The quartering, I went to his channel. He's not getting it. Let's see. Benny Johnson sucks. He can't get in either.
In their bio, and it was a interesting profile. And yeah, what happened to Threads?
Yeah, what happened to Threads?
Twitter killer. Mark's. I noticed this the other day. One of the posts from Donald Trump, I think it was the one saying that he was going to do outdoor rallies again. That
You keep trying, everybody. I don't think this is going to happen, though. If they can't fix it now, I don't see, unless a bunch of people just give up and say, screw it, we're not going to get on here. I don't see how this is going to happen. Unless there's some people that have got in early enough, like I did before, and then got out and tried to get back in again. But then not everybody's going to hear it. That's going to be too bad. Glenn Beck having the same problem. Yeah. Epic failure. Well, the EU got what they wanted. Looks like this guy got exactly what he wanted. Keir Starmer and Thierry Breton. Jeez. This guy Hernando Ars. Elon will break the internet tonight. He broke his own damn platform. Lena, do you still see me on YouTube, or did you say they took me down? Okay. Okay. Yeah, so as I continue to try and refresh and everything and I'm talking about X, just everybody saying they can't get on. Liz Churchill, everybody. I was really looking forward to this too. Now, when they were doing their stress tests, they had about 1 million people in there, and I hope that's not what they thought that was going to be in there, because it looks like to me, based on what I'm seeing on the number of people trying to get in, is over in the tens of millions of people. So whatever stress test they tried to do, it doesn't look like they did a very good job. Yeah, lady, this sucks. Looks like, this is interesting. I would imagine at some point Donald Trump is going to say, I'm done, I'm out of here. So it's showing that he's on his space. Okay, now it's showing he's not in a space anymore. Now it's showing that he is. So I just saw, look, I can't get back to it, but the Hodge twins said that they're going to have to reschedule the space and upgrade their servers. But I don't want to. I don't think it's a. I don't think it's a cyber attack. I mean, it's very possible that it could be one of those kind of like DDoS kind of things too. But I don't know how they would do that on this. But it's very possible that is. I think because once again, it's very similar to what happened with Ron DeSantis. Is that it's just piss poor management. It's not run very well. Elon Musk isn't as great as everybody makes him out to be. And these guys should have had this straight beforehand. I mean, this shouldn't be. I mean, this is probably one of the biggest things next to Ron DeSantis by far, and they don't have their shit together. I mean, again, I'm not surprised at all that they fucked this up, but there's no excuse at all to not have this working and be prepared for this. And, you know, that brings me to something else that I want to bring up while I'm pissed off that my time was wasted and everybody else's was on these platforms that, you know, they all have their problems. YouTube censors people. They're communist. Rumble, or just go back to Facebook. I don't even use Facebook anymore because it's so corrupt, just like Alphabet and YouTube. And then when you go to some of these alternative platforms, you just get zero traction on them. Rumble's one of them. I mean, I definitely find myself using Rumble way more frequently than I do YouTube now, because there seems to be a lot more people that are moving over to it. But it's much more difficult to get traction. And I think there's no doubt X, you know, if you have a legacy account, a lot of people are saying that it's hard coded into your account that you're shadow banned from from Twitter 1.0. And I believe that. And then you see something like this where it's just like, Odyssey, I try Odyssey. They've completely changed everything around. Getting traction on that's next to impossible. BitChute is showing some promise, but again, not a lot of people really know about these particular platforms. And you have to worry about all of them on whether or not they're going to bounce you for whatever reason. Man. But going back to Twitter, is, for those of you who don't know, Elon Musk has this guy who sounds exactly like him. And his name is Adrian Dittman. And Adrian Dittman literally sounds exactly like Elon Musk. I mean, the laugh and everything sounds just like him. And I was on a space with him before and talked to him about a few things, and there was no doubt in my mind that even the questions that I asked him, he answered them as if he was Elon Musk, but he insists that he is not Elon Musk. And so he spends all of this time, this Adrian Dittman, on doing spaces and everything. And when people criticize him or criticize Tesla or whatever it is, he's got all this Tesla stuff. He's involved in Tesla too. It's just not only that does he sound exactly like him, but that he's involved in all of the things that Elon Musk is involved in. And so he seemingly spends all of his time doing this alternative, doppelganger thing, whatever. And then meanwhile, I mean, he was on for like 24 hours straight doing a before Elon Musk, Donald Trump interview, doing a space for like 24 hours straight or something. And it's like, it was like, shouldn't you be preparing for this? Like, shouldn't you be involved in like all the people at X trying to make sure that this shit doesn't fall apart? I mean, I'm convinced beyond any reasonable doubt that they're both the same person. I mean, there's no possible way that you could, unless you're using some sort of sophisticated AI that none of us have access to or ever heard about, can possibly do what he did and sound just like this guy. And so then you see this disaster take place and you go, thank God I don't have stock in this thing. And I don't know why anyone would have stock in Meta or Alphabet, for that matter. This just goes to show you today, what's happening today in this stupid ass space thing. This just goes to show you what everything is now. Nothing works. Customer service is complete trash in everything, whether you're going to dinner, you're going to a store to buy something, restaurant, whatever. Nothing works. You pay more than you ever have before on things. And then you bring it home and it breaks. And then service-wise, you pay somebody to do something, you end up having to do it yourself. And then on top of it, you have these douchebags like Keir Starmer and this fart in the wind. And of course, our own politicians in America. I shouldn't just bag on the EU and UK or the European politicians. I mean, look what's going on in our own race. I mean, Kamala Harris. I could have spent my time talking about her today instead of this dumbass thing, wasting my time and yours. I'm sorry thank you, all of you that are still here. And I'm sorry I'm bitching, but this just sums up everything for you. Okay. Mario Nawfal, who's another crook, but he's very popular on X because hey, anyone who does, shady stuff are always the popular ones that have the most attention on the internet. But this guy, Mario Nawfal, is saying, breaking, Elon, there appears to be a massive DDoS attack on X. Okay. Like I just said before. And I think somebody mentioned this, maybe Jason, you might've said something to that effect, that it was a DDoS, maybe it was something like an attack. Okay, they're working on shutting it down. So you guys, if you're making comments on YouTube, it's getting, see, that's what I'm talking about. Oh, by the way, while we're kind of waiting for this to hopefully, let me finish this message. There appears to be a massive DDoS attack on X, working on shutting it down. Worst case, we will proceed with a smaller number of live listeners. Great. and post a conversation later. That's worst case. So let's just keep our fingers crossed and hang out for a little while and see what happens. But those of you who are on YouTube, because most of the people that I do get that watch are on YouTube. Just out of curiosity, because those of you who are on YouTube, let's have this conversation. Are any of you, Jason, Lena, who else was on here? Elaine, Donnie, if you're still here, Karina, any of you that are in the chat on YouTube, are any of you on an alternative platform like Rumble or X or like Odyssey or BitChute or anything like that? I'm curious to see how many of you are on something different. And if this is a DDoS attack, by the way, once again, they should have been prepared for this. Number one. You can't tell me that you can't figure that out and know that that's what these scumbag leftists do. The people on the right don't do this shit. The people who are conservatives don't, the people who are the God-fearing good people who support law and order, who want safety for their children, don't want their countries invaded by foreigners. The people who are the good people, the hardworking, the creative, the ones who generate the tax dollars, the ones who actually do something with their lives, are productive members of society. They don't do this stuff. Everything about these people is destruction and tearing things down because they can't create, they can't produce. Okay, Elaine, you got to get off YouTube. Get off YouTube and go to either X and sign up an account there or Rumble. And I think you're going to like, and I would do both of those, but I really think you're going to like, like I said, it's hard as a creator to get traction, but as a user, I think it's really good. And I would say those of you who do have Rumble, go over. I'm on Rumble right now. So head over there and watch me there, because I would prefer that I take the audience away from. I had 50,000 followers. I have not, at my highest point, 50,000 followers, and now all of a sudden down to 47,000. I've never gone back up again. So anyone that's on YouTube, definitely go over there onto Rumble and then subscribe to me on Rumble or X or both. QA tester, just X. Okay, so you're on X. That's good. Follow me on X. You can follow me at Den Hendrickson, DenHendrickson. So follow me there on X. Because ultimately, I mean, I'm getting to the point where YouTube is, I mean, if you guys are trying to leave a message or write something in the chat and it gets taken out, I mean, that's ridiculous. Okay, Jason. Yeah, you can follow me then on Rumble. So rumble.com/Dennis Hendrickson. And I'm also on BitChute. Same thing, for bitchute.com/Dennis Hendrickson. So follow me over there. Agents of chaos out of envy. That's exactly right. Nihilism. Nihilism has taken over. The people who believe that life is without object, meaning, purpose, or intrinsic value. A philosophical doctrine that often rejects or denies established moral and social values, religious beliefs, and the inherent meaning of life. That's where we live in, and there's more stabbings that took place in Britain again today. So, it continues to happen because there's no police, there's nobody. The police are more concerned with those that are upset with the fact that their children are being killed. Is the quartering? I checked him out before and didn't see that he had. Let me see if I can't. Oh, I'm in. I am in. I am not touching this now. Can you guys hear that weird little music thing? Okay, this is great. All right. I'll keep talking. I'm not touching that. I'm going to let that music play. I'm not going to silence anything. I am not going to touch anything. Hopefully, we are going to be one of the lucky ones in that small audience that gets to listen to this and not have to wait for the recording. So keep your fingers crossed, everybody, and hopefully we're going to be the lucky ones here. But so far, it looks like we're in. So getting back to nihilism, it's just terrible what's happening right now. And here's an example of, you probably can't see it all that well, but here's CBS News, and this is how biased the news is, CBS in the United States. When it comes to, people were talking about how she's starting to copy Donald Trump's policies, one of which is not taxing tips, which I don't agree with. It's a whole different, whole thing, a whole subject to get into. But CBS News writes, for Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris is rolling out a new policy position saying she'll fight to end taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers. Okay. Then CBS News writes for Donald Trump, former president, and I love how they always say former President Trump. He was a president, just call him President Trump, but they can't do that. Just like that EU douche who refuses to use Donald Trump's name because he's a scumbag. Former President Donald Trump's vow to stop taxing tips would cost the federal government up to $250 billion over 10 years, according to a nonpartisan watchdog group. So they spin Kamala Harris saying that, hey, she's not going to tax tips. Look how wonderful. And even though it's not her idea, it came from Donald Trump. But Donald Trump says it, and they say, oh, well, it's going to cost taxpayers $250, or the government $250 billion over 10 years. Let's see. Okay, now Elon Musk just dropped out of the space. see if we hear anything here. I want to request as listener or a speaker. Well, it looks like it's working. So I guess we'll just have to sit tight and see what happens, but there's more. I don't know what's happening, but let's keep our fingers crossed here. I'm going to look on my other computer to see if I can't see anything else. I don't see Elon Musk in the space, so I don't know. Okay, Elon Musk is back on again. No, you guys can see it because I've got it on the screen. There we go, Elena. Elena's on Rumble now. There we go. Yeah, it shows 943,000 other listeners. And I think what ended up happening is I think they had so many people that, well, they claim it was a DDoS attack. So I guess it wasn't the people that are all trying to get in. I mean, who knows if that really was the case. Either way, they should have been prepared for it. But I'll continue to go into some news that I was actually going to save for the live show on Thursday. So it looks like Donald Trump is going to sue the Department of Justice for $100 million for their raid on the Mar-a-Lago property in 2022. Trump's lawyers argue that the raid was done with clear intent to engage in political persecution. Absolutely. Absolutely, that's what was going on. What President Trump is doing here is not just standing up for himself, he's standing up for all of Americans who believe in the rule of law and believe that you should hold government accountable when it wrongs you. The announcement comes after U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon dismissed the Jack Smith case against Trump. And I think a lot of you who watch this stuff probably figured that, you know what, that's what was going to happen. This stuff was going to get dismissed. I mean, he's got some other cases that, I think there's a sentencing in one. I think that's next month. I can't even keep track of them all. I forget which ones they are, but all of these are, it's
all right. Hello, everyone. My apologies for the late start. We unfortunately had a massive distributed denial of service attack against our servers, and saturated all of our data lines. Like basically hundreds of gigabits of data were saturated. We think we've overcome most of that, and so it's now time to proceed. But as this massive attack illustrates, there's a lot of opposition to people just hearing what President Trump has to say, and but I'm honored to have this conversation. I want to emphasize it's a conversation, and it's really intended to just get a feel for what Donald Trump is just like in a conversation. It's hard to catch a vibe about someone if you just don't hear them talk in a normal way. And when there's an adversarial interview, like no one's themselves in an adversarial interview. And this is really aimed at kind of open-minded, independent voters who just trying to make up their mind. So you can understand, like,
can you guys hear this okay? It's a little low, but I can't turn up the volume.
Conversation. So honored to Donald, great to speak. We had a great conversation yesterday. As you mentioned yesterday, if we could just record that conversation and post it, it would have been excellent. And I hope we can have something like that today.
Well, I think we will. I'm pretty sure we will. And congratulations, because I see you broke every record in the book with so many millions of people, and it's an honor. We view that as an honor. And then you do want silencing of certain voices. Usually those are voices that have something to say that are constructive, oftentimes constructive. And so we have to consider it an honor. But congratulations on breaking every record in the book tonight. That's great.
Well, thank you. Well, I mean, maybe we could start off with, the assassination attempt, which was an incredible thing. And I have to say that, your actions after that assassination attempt were inspiring. You, instead of shying away from things, instead of ducking down, you were pumping your fist in the air and saying, fight, fight, fight. And I think that's, the president of the United States represents America. And I think that is America. That is strength under fire. And so that's, a big, part of the reason why I was excited to endorse you as the president of the United States for having another term here is that was just incredibly inspiring. But what was it like for you?
Not pleasant. I have to be honest. I said there was blood. I had more blood. I didn't know I had that much blood. The doctors later told me that the ear is a place that is a very bloody place if you're going to get hit. But in this case, it was probably the best alternative you could even think about. because it went at the right angle, and it was a hard hit. It was very, I guess you would say surreal, but it wasn't surreal. I was telling somebody you have instances like this, or like a lot less than this, where you feel it's a surreal situation, and I never felt that way. I knew immediately that it was a bullet. I knew immediately that it was at the ear,
Yeah.
and because it hit very hard, but hit the ear. And I also heard people shout, "Bullets, bullets!" Get down, because I moved down pretty nicely, pretty quickly, and we had bullets flying right over my head after I went down. So I'm glad I went down. The bigger miracle was that I was looking in the exact direction of the shooter, and so it hit me at an angle that was far less destructive than any other angle. So that was the miracle. That was for those people that don't believe in God. I think we got to all start thinking about that. You have to, I'm a believer now. I'm more of a believer, I think, and a lot of people have said that to me. A lot of great people have said that to me, actually. But it was amazing that I happened to be turned just at that perfect angle, and all because I put down a chart on immigration that showed that the numbers were so great. I love that chart even more
maybe
now.
it's a sign. Maybe that's a sign.
It's an immigration sign.
You highlighted a serious issue, and at that moment, the bullet missed your, hit your ear, but missed your head. I mean,
the amazing thing is that the sign, I said, bring down that sign on immigration, and it was literally about an eighth of a second where it would be good, and after that it was going to be a disaster, no matter which way you were facing. But it just had that perfect angle, which was exactly at this shooter. Very sad situation. Such a sad situation. As you know, we lost somebody that was great, Corey, who, a firefighter, a great gentleman, a great trumper. He was just a fantastic family and a fantastic man. And a friend of mine came up, Elon, and said, "I'd like to give the family some kind of help." And I said, "All right, that's great." He said, "Do you mind?" I said, "I don't mind at all." And he wrote out a check for $1 million, gave it to the wife. And, she said, "This is really nice, but I'd rather have my husband back," which is a nice thing for somebody to say, to be honest. She's great. The family is great. And we raised a lot of money for them, and for two other gentlemen are unbelievable people also. They were hit really badly. They thought they were not going to make it, and they did. The doctors in the Butler area, I tell you, they were incredible. They saved the two, and they were really hit tough, both of them, equally. And we thought, my first question was, because I heard bullets flying over me, and I said, how many people were killed? Because we had a massive crowd there, a tremendous thousands and thousands of people, and there was no land. I mean, it was all people. So I said, how many people have been killed? Because I knew there were other shots being fired. And they said, we don't know yet, but some people have been badly hurt. And I have to give the Secret Service sniper, they call him, or sharpshooter, but sniper, because he didn't know there was a problem. He's an extraordinary shot, obviously, and he didn't know there was a problem. And he was able to pick it all out within 5 seconds. And he used one bullet from very far away, I guess probably about 400 yards. The shooter was 130, but he was on the opposite side of the field and the podium. And he saw the smoke and the flame from the gun, immediately recognized it, and immediately took a shot. And it was one perfect shot from very far away. And if he didn't do that, Elon, he would have. I mean, if he would have, a lot more people could have been badly hurt and killed. So I have to take my hat off to him, because that's also a surreal. He's been with them for 23 years, and he's never had anything like this. And all of a sudden he has to act, and it's a very tough thing to act and to be shooting somebody. But he saw the gun, saw the smoke, saw the flame from the gun, very far away. Obviously has very good eyes. He's got very good vision, which I assume you have to have in that particular work. But he took aim very quickly, and they say it was approximately 5 seconds from long range, one bullet. if that didn't happen, because
Yeah.
the shooter had a lot of bullets. He had a lot of cartridges
Sure.
up there with him. So
Well,
could have been very.
I mean, that's clearly, he was very competent in taking that shot to stop the attempted assassination. But I mean, there does seem to be, I mean, some pretty significant failings elsewhere in the system. Like, there's just no way that, like, how on earth does a shooter get on a roof 130 yards away? That seems crazy. I think most people people are wondering how on earth could such a thing happen?
Well, I view it as two ways. There should have been nobody on the roof. There were people,
Yeah.
because there were so many tens of thousands of people there. There were people that were seeing him, and there was one woman with a red shirt and
Right.
Trump all over it,
I saw the video.
and she's screaming, "That guy's got a gun!" You saw it probably.
Yeah.
There's a
No, I
guy
saw
up
the
there
videos.
with a gun.
I mean, it's like I guess, I mean, for my part, and I think probably many members of the public are wondering how the heck are, basically people wondering by it, pointing out there's a guy on the roof with a gun.
Yeah.
And they're seeing it, but somehow it's not being addressed. That does seem crazy.
Well, they're going to learn from this. The communication between the local police, who sort of had an idea, and then ultimately a man lifted himself up to the roof, could barely do it because he was pulling himself up, and
Yeah.
he saw the man with the gun. The man with the gun pointed the gun at him. He thought he was probably going to get shot, but he was like pulling himself up, and because of that, he couldn't get to his gun, and he fell down. Actually, very badly hurt his leg, his ankle. I hear very badly,
Okay.
but he fell down, and he did. From what I understand, he did say there's a guy up there with a gun, and the shooting started very quickly after that. I think it forced the shooter to go maybe quicker. He was supposed to be a very good shot.
Yeah.
My sons, Don and Eric, they can't believe what happened, but they said from 130 yards, a bad shot would hit that target almost every time. They said it's like in golf,
Yeah.
sinking a 2-foot putt.
Yeah, it's not a tough shot.
It's not a long shot. The Secret Service person had the long shot. He had triple the distance actually. So it was a terrible thing. It's hard. I have to say this about the Secret Service. When I went down, and I went down based on, I think, they're screaming, but other people also, because people saw this happen. You had so many people. One of the miracles was that nobody ran. I mean, if a gun goes off, the crowd control people showed us this. When guns go off, and it does happen in stadiums at a soccer match or some kind of a match, everybody flees. They call it a stampede, like cattle. But everybody, and a lot of people get killed with those stampedes. We had more people than you'd have at, some of these matches or these games, and nobody left. You had a small group behind us in the grandstand, and that was full. And you look at it as it was taking place, and normally they'd be running. They didn't leave. They saw that I was hurt. They saw a lot of blood, and they saw that I went down. And it's almost like they wanted to be with me. Well, out front, you had thousands, tens of thousands of people. As far as the eye could see, you had people in Butler, as far as the eye could see, and a lot of press too. There was many cameras on watching this. It's what makes it so different, because normally things happen that aren't good, but you never have a picture of it. Here we have all these cameras shooting it, so sort of amazing. But one of the interesting things was that you didn't have anybody flee. You didn't have anybody stampede.
Sure.
Nobody. And there were some people behind me. They stood up and they're looking like, I mean, I'll tell you, you want to have them in a foxhole with you. I want to meet some of those people because it's so different from what you heard. But so I was down. But the Secret Service guys, there were bullets flying right over my head. You could hear them go whizzing, and these guys came jumping on top of me, and a young lady, Kate, would jump. They moved so fast, and let me tell you, that took tremendous courage. Now, there was a lack of coordination. There was, obviously everybody understands that that building should have been covered. And
Yeah, I mean,
that was
I
the
think
big
that
thing.
like, I mean, looking at the aerial views, that building would be like the number one spot for a sniper. I mean, it's like the, if you were to pick like, what is the favorite, what if you, so if the goal is to assassinate, what's your favorite spot? That building, the
You're
roof of
right.
that building would be number one.
That would have been the spot.
It's like you can ask for a better
No,
location. It's like number
no,
one.
that would have been the spot.
Um,
You know what people think
yeah,
is when the local policeman, who, by the way, you know, he really he did what he was supposed to do. He couldn't hold on any longer. And then when he got
yeah,
his head just peeking above, this guy standing there with a gun at his head. And when he fell down, again, hurt his ankle very badly, but he was making the calls. But what happened is the firing took place very soon. So what they
yeah,
think is that this guy ran to his site, which he had all planned out with the gun. He ran to the site and he started shooting fast. And maybe that's why he, well, he sort of missed. I mean, you know, he,
yeah. But
he
as you
got
said,
me, but
he
it
would have
could have
hit.
been,
I mean,
could have been a much
yeah.
bigger problem.
But he totally would have hit if you hadn't turned your head. So like, you know, there was a, it was a very near thing.
It was a
So
miracle. If I hadn't turned my head,
yeah,
I would not be talking to you right now. As much as I like you,
exactly.
I would not.
Yeah,
I would
well,
not be talking to you.
maybe talking to me from another realm, perhaps.
Yeah, that's right. We'd be talking from a
So
different place. But it was a, you know, it was a very terrible experience. The Butler Hospital, they did such a great job. The doctors were so good. Everybody was so good. There was a mistake. If somebody knew, because people were hearing that, you know, there was just a bad feeling that there was somebody was around. You know that story now. It's been pretty
yeah,
well.
yeah,
And
yeah,
if somebody could have said, because they've oftentimes said, you know, like there'd be a lightning storm or something. Because I've done, I think over 300. I think I did a lot more than that, but we did a lot. And oftentimes they'll say, "Sir, could you wait 10 minutes, please? Sir, could you wait 20 minutes? There's a storm overhead or lightning or something," right? And
yeah,
that happens
yeah,
often. And this would have been a perfect time for that to have happened, but
yeah.
it didn't get coordinated. That was the problem.
Well, it was your I think your actions in the heat of fire, and you know, like what I found admirable there was that you can't fake bravery under such circumstances. The courage is instinctual or it is not. It's not a rehearsed action. And so I just want to say that I think a lot of people admire your courage under fire there. And
Well,
yeah, so
thank you very
yeah,
much. I appreciate it. I didn't think of it. I just wanted to get up and I wanted to stand up. I wanted to let people know, you know, I felt I was good when they were on top of me, covering me, actually, very much covering me and very bravely. But I wanted to get up. I said, I want to get up. And they wanted, you know, they have everything there. They wanted stretcher. I didn't like the stretcher, and I knew I was hit in the ear, but I knew I wasn't hit anywhere else. They felt I was hit someplace else
yeah,
because it was such a lot of blood, and they were sure that I was hit someplace else. And they were saying, "Sir, you were hit in more than the ear." I said, "Nope, I was hit in the ear. I want to get up. Let me get up." And so I got up, and the crowd didn't know what to think. I mean, this was so many people, and you could see they were confused. They didn't know what to think. And I wanted to let them know I was okay. It was very important for me to let them
yeah,
know that. And they went wild. You've seen the after. They didn't go wild when I
yeah,
got up because they didn't know, was I alive? You really couldn't tell. When I stood up before the you know, the fist in the air, uh, they didn't know if I was alive. Nobody did. And when I put the fist up, they were just relieved and happy and thrilled, and the place went crazy. It was pretty
yeah.
amazing. It was a
Well,
terrible thing, but
it was
really nice.
incredibly moving. Yeah. Um, well, and I mean, speaking of the, the sort of slide that got you to turn that uh, saved your life, really, was the illegal immigration
Right.
slide. Maybe this,
That's right.
maybe this is worth talking about that, since
It was.
that slide saved
You're
your
right.
life,
No,
basically.
the illegal immigration saved my life. You're right, but it was. And I
I
had to
know
be at
that's
that exact angle.
I mean, that's a great one. Saved by illegal
You know,
immigration.
the incredible
100%.
thing, though, when you talk about the odds, you had to be exactly at that angle. But the
Yeah,
incredible thing is that the chart, I used it less than 20% of the time. It was just a moment.
yeah,
it's always on my left, never my right, and it's always at the end of the speech. So here
Yeah.
we have it. It's on the right, not the left. It's at the beginning, not the end. And even the people that put it up, they were unprepared, and they did a great job. They got it up immediately, fortunately. But I looked to the right, and the bullet came whizzing by, hitting my ear. So it was amazing. But when you think of the odds of that, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you know that normally you wouldn't use it. Normally I wouldn't have the thing, and then it
Yeah.
would have been a very different story. It's very much I I say an act of God. It's a miracle that it happened, and I'm
Sure.
honored by it. I'm honored by it.
Well, what were you about to say about illegal immigration before you were rudely interrupted with a
Well, I was
bullet?
going to say how good the numbers were. By the way, we're going back to Butler, and we're going to go
Great.
back in October. We're all set up, and the people are fantastic in Butler. It's a great area. Great, these are incredible people. Like the three that, in the case of Corey killed, and the other two, the families are. I got to know them a little bit, and the families are great. But we're going back to Butler, and I think I'll probably start by saying, as I was saying,
As, yeah, as you were
prior to
saying,
being
exactly.
so
So,
horribly interrupted.
yeah,
But
yeah. So rudely interrupted by an
yeah,
assassination
so it was.
attempt.
But no, but the chart,
Some people have no manners.
Elon, the chart was just a chart that in my last week we had the best illegal immigration numbers, meaning stopping. It was at the lowest. You've seen the chart. It's become quite a famous
Yeah,
chart,
yeah,
but that was the lowest
yeah.
point ever recorded. It was a really, I mean, I was very proud of those numbers. And then you see what happened with these people, Kamala and Joe. You see what happened. They just let it go. I had remain in Mexico policies. I had all these different policies that was so good. Uh, Guys like Tom Holman and Brandon Judd from Border Patrol. All these are all people that they've been on television. They said it's the best numbers we've ever had. We had so many different checks, catch and release in Mexico, not the United. We had catch and release in the United States. We had it in Mexico. We had so many things. We had things where many people come in there, they have contagious diseases. We had everything passed. If you have a contagious disease, I'm sorry, but we cannot allow you into the country. So we were setting
Yeah,
literally records, and all I was doing is showing that, and I use it sometimes,
sure.
and in this case, I'm glad I used it. I can tell you that, but they were fantastic numbers. But I'm going to sleep with that chart always. I'll be sleeping with that chart. That chart was very important for a lot of reasons.
Well, I mean, would it be accurate to say that you're supportive of legal immigration, but but we also need to shut down illegal immigration, and especially unvetted
Yes,
illegal immigration, because and that's not the same as saying that everyone who's an illegal immigrant is bad. In fact, I think most people who are illegal immigrants are actually good, but you can't tell the difference unless there's a solid vetting of who comes across the border. Does that accurately
100%.
represent your position?
I say it
Okay.
very simply. They have to come in legally. They have to be checked.
Yeah.
Because look, Kamala was the border czar. Now she's denying it. Everything that I do, she's
Yeah.
saying she was strong on the border. We're going to be strong. Well, she doesn't have to say it. She could close it up right now. They could do things right now. It's horrible. Uh, no tax on tips, and all of a sudden she's making a speech and there will be no tax on tips. I said that months ago. And by the way, they had just the opposite. They had not only tax on tips, but they hired 88,000 IRS agents, and many of them were assigned to go get waitresses and caddies and all of this on tips. They have a policy. They had a policy that they were really going to go after you, and were really harassing people horribly. And then all of a sudden, for politics, she says, she comes out with what I said, which I think is terrible, and I think it's also hitting them very hard. These people are fake. Now they're also saying they did a good job on the border. We had the worst numbers in the history of the world, not of our country. There's never been a country in history that has had a catastrophe like this. We've had, I believe, and I think you believe this too, you hear 12
Yeah.
million, 13. I believe it's over 20 million people came into our country,
Yeah.
many coming from jails, from prisons, from mental institutions, or A bigger version of that is insane asylums, and many are terrorists. And I'll tell you what, they're coming not just from South America, they're coming from Africa, they're coming from all over the world. They're coming from Asia, they're coming from the Middle East, they're coming from countries that are stupidly and horribly bombing Israel October 7th. They're coming from all over the world. And you know, you look at, it's so sad October 7th because it should have never happened. It's so sad when you look at Ukraine. It should have never happened. We have a defective government. These are defective people, and they're not people that should be running it. But where you see it the best is the border, because you have millions of people coming in a month, and then she gets up and she tries to pretend like she's going to do something. She had 3.5 years. And by the way, they have another 5 months that they can do something, but they won't do anything. It's all talk. She's incompetent and he's incompetent. And frankly, I think that she's more incompetent than he is. And that's saying something because he's not too good.
Yeah. No, I think it is essential to have a secure border. I mean, you're really not a country unless you have a secure border. And
secure elections, too.
You know, yeah, absolutely, secure elections. And so it's just essential to have a real border, or we can't function as a country, and our service, you know, our central services are being overwhelmed in a lot of cities. But as we were talking about earlier, I think having a legal immigration process that is smooth and efficient and done well, and speaking as someone who is a legal immigrant, I think I mean, like one way to think of it is, who do you want on your team? You know, who do you want on Team America? And I think we want to just say, okay, we want to let in people who are going to, you know, be great contributors to our society and to our economy, and you know, and who do you want on the team? And it's not to say that, like in my opinion, actually, I'd say like probably most of the illegal immigrants actually are actually good, hardworking people. That's my opinion. But some are not, and you just have this sort of adverse selection process where, you know, if somebody's, you know, if somebody's like has a career in theft or robbery, I don't understand what's taken them so long to get here. Because we're such a target-rich environment. I mean, you know, why aren't more people who have a career in, you know, bad things coming here sooner? Because it's a piece of cake to go rob, you know, houses in LA or New York, compared to other parts of the world, and in a lot of places in America, if you try to stop the person who's robbing you, you'll be arrested. So
there are a lot of things I disagree with Donald Trump on.
What's
I won't
happening
go into
with
it
crime,
now,
and our police are so good, but they're not allowed to do their job. But I have to tell you, Elon, I hate to say it because it's such a downer to say it. I hate to say it. I hate it. But you have a lot of people that just shouldn't be. I think it's a much bigger number than you think. They're allowing, they're allowing people from their jails. And if you were running one of these countries where they're coming from, you would have had all of them. As an example, Venezuela, their crime is down 72%. They're taking their drug dealers. They're taking, frankly, their prisoners. They're emptying out their prisons. They're taking their criminals, their murderers, their rapists, and they're delivering them into.
That's what Castro did.
Yeah, well, he did on a much smaller scale. You know, it was a much smaller scale. But this is a massive scale because this is being done worldwide. But here's what's happening: crime all over the world is down. And wait till you see the numbers that we have. You know, this is migrant crime. This is crime that's going to be. And I saw it today in New York where somebody was knifed with raped the girlfriend of a man that stood there watching in New York in one of the shelters, and started pulling out the knives, and bad things happened today. But this is happening every day. These are rough people. These are people that are in jail for murder and all sorts of things. And they're releasing them into our country, and they're telling them, if you come back, we're going to kill you. We're going to give you the death penalty or kill you. So they don't want to come back. But these are rough people. These are criminals that make our criminals look like nice people. And it's horrible what they're doing. and she's in charge of it because now she's trying to say she
Sure.
had nothing to do with it, and she's such a liar because she was called the border czar the first day, and it was on the headlines of every newspaper. She's the border czar, and she never even went there. She went to one location which had nothing to do with where the problem is. She went in and out, I
Right.
guess, because she was getting a lot of pressure,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
had nothing to do where the problem
Yeah.
is. But she was the
Well,
border czar, and people
yeah, yeah.
can't allow them to get away with their disinformation campaign. Now she's trying to say that she wasn't really involved, and the whole thing is horrible. She was totally in charge. She could have shut the border down without him. He didn't know what he was doing anyway, so he wouldn't have even known
Yeah.
what happened. You could shut the border down. He
Yeah.
wouldn't even know the difference. But the fact is that she was border czar. But if you don't have to call her
Yes.
that, the fact is you could just call her. She was in charge of the border, and the border was the worst
Right.
ever.
It's simply not working.
No, it's horrible.
Whether it's a question of intention or competence, either way, we don't have a secure border, and we have people streaming over like it looks like a World War Z zombie apocalypse at times. And sometimes you got to sort of wonder, like, is it real or not? So because you see things, you're like, is it real? So I went to the border at Eagle Pass, and I saw for myself in Texas, and I was like, okay, it's real. I'm like seeing this in real time. I actually posted the video like just live. I just flew there one day and just to see, hey, is this made up or real? And I'm just seeing people stream across the border, and I have to say, at least the people that I saw did not look friendly.
These are
people can look at my video and say,
Yeah.
hey, these people look friendly. I don't look super friendly. So
These are people that Elon would not be the same man if he had to walk across the street and look these people in the eye. These are rough people. These are really rough people coming across. And I know rough people. And these are people that we don't want in our country. And, the caravans are coming in, and they're putting, and who's doing this are the heads of the countries. And you would be doing
Yeah.
it, and so would I. And everyone would say, oh, what a terrible thing to say. The fact is, it's brilliant for them because they're taking all of their bad people, really bad people. And I hate to say this, the reason the numbers are much bigger than you would think is they're also taking their non-productive people. Now, these aren't people that will kill you. We have enough of them. But these are people that are non-productive. They are just non-productive. I mean, for whatever reason. They're not
Yeah, yeah.
workers, or they don't want to work, or whatever. And these countries are getting rid of non-productive people in the caravans in many cases. And they're also getting rid of their murderers and their drug dealers and the people that are really brutal people. And they're coming into our country
Yeah.
at levels that have never been seen before. And I saw an ad just before I got on the air. I'm walking over here, and I saw an ad by Kamala saying how she is going to provide border security. Where has she been for 3.5 years? For 3.5 years,
Yeah, no,
we have 20 million people
I
poured
think
in. It's a terrible.
Yeah, I think this, frankly, I think this is a fundamental existential issue for the United States. And if we have another 4 more years of open borders, and it's going to be even worse with another 4 more years, it's going to be even worse than it's been for the past 3.5 years. I'm not sure we've got a country.
You don't
left
have a country
at that
left.
point.
Elon, if they get in, you will have 50 to 60 million people from all over the world, not South America only. We think of South America, we think of Honduras and El Salvador, Guatemala, and Mexico, the 4. But it's not that. It's everywhere. They're coming in from everywhere. And I had to stay in Mexico.
Yeah, I think this is a super important
Yeah.
point. Like people, it's like basically when I went down there, I was like, well, where are people from? It's like almost no one was from Mexico. to
No,
be clear.
Mexico less.
It's just
less
it's
than
just the
others.
border. It's just the border with Mexico. But the people coming in, it's Earth, the rest of Earth. And America is only about 4 or 5% of the population of Earth. It would only take a few percent of the rest of Earth to overwhelm everything in
We're
the US.
already overwhelmed, Elon. We're overwhelmed. You had to see the news tonight about New York, and I love that place. And what they're doing to it is horrible. What they're doing to it, and all the courts do is they try and focus on Trump. Okay, let's focus on Trump, who did nothing wrong. I complain about a rigged election. Elon, what's happened is unbelievable. You have from Africa. From the Congo, they're coming from the Congo, and 22 people came in from the Congo recently, and they're murderers, and they're dropped. They drop them. They take them out of jails, which is very expensive, to maintain the jails. Although they don't do too much maintaining, I can tell you. But they take them out of jails, prisons. They take them out, and they bring them to the United States.
They never talk about why this is happening.
They don't ever come back, or you're going to be executed.
They just talk about what is happening, but they never talk about why.
Sure.
But they're coming from Africa. They're coming from Asia. They're coming from the Middle East. They're coming from South America.
Everything's
they're
no shit.
no
shit. We
and
all
there are
see
a lot
this.
of really
everywhere
bad
on
ones.
It's just an everywhere on Earth thing, and it's just not possible for the United States to absorb everyone from Earth, or even a few percent of the rest of Earth. It's just not possible. So,
Well, Elon, we're going to have to finish this up. We're going to have the largest deportation in history of this country, and we have no choice. Otherwise, we're going to have a country. What they've done to our country. Think of it, with in Venezuela and in some of these other countries, crime is down 50, 60, 70, 80%. And you would be the same. You would have.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Venezuela has not gotten rid of all of them. They've gotten rid of about 70% of their really bad people. Their jails are about 50% put into the United States. Same with other countries.
Sure.
Some are 30%, some are at 50%. They're all different. But the bottom line is they're all going to be at 100%. Why
it's a shame this is not a good
100%
interview.
in?
Yeah.
And
This is a lot worse than I thought it would be.
While this third-rate phony candidate, don't forget, I beat Biden.
This is
He
a real
failed in the
disappointment.
debate miserably. And, some people said, oh, gee, it's too bad. It's too bad he did so badly, or I did well in the debate. The first night they said, wow, one of the people at CNN said that was the greatest debate performance I've ever witnessed. And then 2 days later, they didn't talk about that. They just said he was bad. But that's okay. That's the way I get treated, and I don't mind that at all. What I can tell you is this. We cannot have a Democrat. We cannot have her. She's incompetent. She's as bad as Biden in a different.
Yeah.
Look, she hasn't done an interview since this whole scam started. And say what you want. This was a coup. This was a coup of a president of the United States. He didn't want to leave, and they said we can do it the nice way or we can do it the hard way.
Yeah, they just took him out back behind the shed and basically shot him.
What they did with this guy, and I'm no fan of his, and he was a horrible president, the worst president in history. And one of the reasons he was so bad, first of all, the Israeli attack would have never happened. Russia would never have attacked Ukraine, and we'd have no inflation. And we wouldn't have had the Afghanistan mess, if you think of it.
Well,
and we wouldn't have had Afghanistan. But we think of it. You take a few of those events away, and we have a different world. We would also have inflation was caused by oil.
Yeah, I think you're making an excellent point here, which is that when other countries can, that are thinking about invading or doing bad things, when they're thinking about that, they're thinking about, okay, what's the American president going to do, and do they fear the American president, or is there someone they do not respect and do not fear? And I think they would rightfully be. I mean, look at the footage with the assassination. They're like, okay, President Trump is like, don't mess with me. I mean, that's like, whereas I think people are not going to be, and they obviously have not been at all intimidated by Biden, and they certainly will not be intimidated by Kamala. And you have to really think of that in the context of global security. That if the American president is someone that, like, evil dictators are scared of, that makes a huge difference to the security of the world.
So I had a good relationship with Putin, despite the Russia hoax that lasted for over 2 years. Just a hoax created by Hillary Clinton and Adam Shifty Schiff, some just bad people, just sick people, frankly. I mean, Schiff is a sick person. He's going to end up probably being a senator. It's hard to believe. The whole thing is hard to believe. But, they put our country in danger with that stuff, too. They actually, when they make up stories, and you have to fight your way out of it for a long time. But I know Putin very well. I got along with him very well. He respected me, and it's just one of those things. And we would talk a lot about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye. But I said, don't ever do it. Don't ever do it. I shut down Nord Stream 2. That was the big oil pipeline, the biggest pipeline in the world going all over Europe. I shut it down. Biden came, and then they say, I loved Russia. I was a friend of Putin, and I loved Russia. No, he actually said to me one time, he said, if you're my friend, I'd hate to see you as an enemy. I shut down his pipeline, the biggest pipeline. They were looking at that to fund, and this pathetic president gets in there, and the first thing he did, one of the early things he did, is he shut down Keystone XL pipeline, which is our pipeline that would have employed 48,000 people, pipeline workers, shuts it down. That was, a massive job that Obama refused to allow.
Yeah.
I allowed it in my first week because it was jobs and it moved oil. And by the way, in a much more environmentally friendly way. It's underground. It's not a truck that catches on fire or a train that catches on fire. But think of it. He shut down the XL pipeline, the Keystone XL pipeline.
Yeah.
He shuts that down, and he approves the Russian pipeline.
Yeah, it doesn't make any
Right?
sense. It's inconsistent. Certainly, but I mean, I think it's just worth emphasizing, to listeners, the immense importance of whether the United States president is intimidating or not intimidating, and how much that matters to global security, because there's some real tough characters out there, and if they don't think the American president is tough, they will do what they want to do.
I know every one of them.
And that puts the whole world in danger.
Elon, I know every one of them, and I know them well. I know Putin. I know President Xi. I know Kim Jong-un of North Korea. I know every one of them. And let me tell you, people will say, oh, this is terrible. He said, I'm not saying anything good or bad. They're at the top of their game. They're tough. They're smart. They're vicious. And they're going to protect their country, whether they love their country. They probably do. It's just a different form of love, but they're going to protect their country. But these are tough people at the top of their game. And when they see a Kamala or when they see Biden, Sleepy Joe, they can't even believe it. They can't believe this happened. All the stuff that you're seeing now, all the horror that you look at Israel, they're all waiting for an attack from Iran. Iran would not be attacking, believe me. When I was there, and I say it with respect, because I think we would have been good with Iran. I don't want to do anything bad to Iran, but they knew not to mess around. Iran was broke because I told China, if you buy from Iran oil, it's all about the oil. That's where the money is. But if you buy oil from Iran, you're not going to do any business with the United States. And I meant it. And they said, we'll pass.
Yeah.
They didn't buy oil. Other countries, likewise.
Sure.
You want to buy, you're not doing business with the United States. And they were at a point where they had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah. They had no money for any of these instruments of terror. And it was amazing. In fact, there were articles when I was leaving, which is hard to believe, actually, especially when you look at what's happened to our country. Our country is so bad right now. It's such a different place. We were respected. Think of it. 4 years ago, we were so respected to a point where when I said don't buy oil, they didn't buy oil. But they had no money, and Israel would have never been attacked. Zero chance. And again, I said to Vladimir Putin, I said, don't do it. You can't do it, Vladimir. You do it, it's going to be a bad day. You cannot do it. And I told him things that what I do, and he said, no way. And I said, way. And it's the last time we ever had the conversation. He would never have done. I got along well with him. I hope to get along well with him again. Getting along well with them is a good thing, not a bad thing. I got along well with Kim Jong-un. When I met with President Obama just before entering, it's a sort of a ritual. And I sat down with him and we talked. It was supposed to be for a very short period of time. It turned out to be a long period of time. I said, what's the biggest problem? He said, North Korea. I had that problem worked out very quickly. It was nasty at the beginning with Rocket Man and, all the different things.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden I got a call.
Those were some epic tweets, by the way.
Yeah, they were epic everything. He said that he has a red button on his desk. I said, I have a red button on my desk too, but my red button is much bigger and my red button works. And then I called him Little Rocket Man of Little Rocket Man. Anyway, here's the bottom line. All of a sudden I got a call from him. And they said they want to meet. They want to meet me. And we met, as you remember, we met in Singapore. We met also in Vietnam. And I got along with them great. We were in no danger. But President Obama thought we were going to end up in a war, a nuclear war with him. And let me tell you, he's got a lot of nuclear stuff, too.
Exactly.
He's got plenty of nuclear. He can do plenty of damage. So
yes, I mean, it's because, I mean, people like Kim Jong Un, they respond to strength, not weakness.
well,
And
he
and
he and I got
if you
he and I had
project
a good
strength,
relationship.
you're
Remember I met him and we walked onto his land. Nobody ever walked onto his land before. I walked onto. I wouldn't say.
yeah,
Let's
that
bring
was
up
cool.
Secret Service again. I wouldn't say they were thrilled when I did that. I walked onto his land.
This is the
And,
problem. It's the same
it was
repetitive
an amazing
things.
period, but we were not in danger with him because of me. I always say that we have enemies on the outside and we have enemies on the inside. We have some really bad people in our government and people that are and controlling of the people. I mean, I'd mention names, but I really don't want to give them the credit. But we have some really bad, and I say they're more dangerous than Russia and China. If you have a smart president, a president that gets it, we are not in danger from those countries because they need us and they need our help. I mean, we forced Obama, if you think about it, Obama and Biden, and Bush to a certain extent, in all fairness, forced Russia and China together. And if you're a history student, the first thing you learn is you cannot let Russia and China align. But then they also got, if you take a look, Iran, and they have North Korea. That's, they call it the axis of evil. In the old days, you had the axis of evil. Here we have a modern day axis of evil. These are powerful countries, very heavy nuclear, which is the biggest threat.
Yeah.
The biggest threat is not global warming, where the ocean's going to rise 1/8 of an inch over the next 400 years. And you'll have more oceanfront property, right? The biggest threat is not that. The biggest threat is nuclear warming, because we have 5 countries now that have significant nuclear power, and we have to not allow anything to happen with stupid people like Biden. Biden did something with Russia. There was no chance of him ever going in. And when I left, and then after I left, they started forming big armies on the border with Ukraine, right? And I looked at that, and I thought he was doing that because Putin's a good negotiator. I thought he was doing that to negotiate. But then Biden started saying such stupid things. For instance, he said that it can be a NATO country. Now, Russia, for as long as there's been NATO, has said we're never going to agree to that. And we go right up front and say that. And we did things and said things through this president with a low IQ, very low IQ. He had a low IQ 30 years ago, by the way, but now he might not even have a IQ at all. There's nothing on the board that goes this low. He said things that were so stupid that war would have been, that war had zero chance of happening if I were there. Zero chance. He was saying everything the opposite. Everything the opposite. And it's so sad because many more people have been killed in Ukraine than you read about. You don't read about how bloody it is and how disastrous.
Sure.
Hey, look, just in the 2 armies, you lost 500,000 people. And
Entire generations wiped
Ukraine's
out.
having a hard time. Ukraine, I don't know if you saw the article recently, and it's true. You don't hear the true story. But if you think about it, Russia's gone, Russia defeated Germany with us, and they defeated Napoleon. They've been around a long time. They're a big fighting force.
Yeah. Sure.
And it's very unfair. And Ukraine now doesn't have enough men. They're now using young men and very old men to fight. And we're in a very bad position. And I'm not going to blame exclusively, but I can tell you I could have stopped that. And a smart president could have stopped that. It wouldn't have happened. But we had a man that actually made it more prevalent. It was so bad. The words that he was using, the stupid threats coming from a stupid face that he was using. I said, this guy's going to cause us a war. He's going to cause us. And let me tell you, it can lead to World War III. That can lead to World War III. The Middle East can lead to. We have numerous places that could end up in a World War III right now for no reason whatsoever.
I think you're right. I think people underrate the risk of World War III, and it's just when you're looking at the risk of global thermonuclear warfare, it's game over for humanity, and it's something that people have, I think, after the end of the Cold War, people have become complacent about, but they actually have forgotten that there are currently a lot of nuclear missiles that have targeting parameters for the United States from
100%.
other countries.
And one of the things
And
we're going to do is
it's
we're going to build
yeah,
an Iron Dome over us. Israel has it. We're going to have the best Iron Dome in the world. We need it, and we're going to make it all in the United States. But we're going to have protection, because it just takes one maniac to start something. We're going to have protection, and we're going to have. Why shouldn't we have an Iron Dome? Israel has one. Some other places
yeah,
have one that nobody even knows about, frankly. But Israel has it. We're going to have an Iron Dome. But with all of that being said, to me that's so important, the most important. But with all of that being said, the election's coming up, and the people want to hear about the economy and the fact that they
absolutely, sure.
can't buy groceries because they don't have enough money to buy groceries. The inflation has killed them. Food prices are up 50, 60, even 100% in some cases. And this stupid administration allowed this to happen, and it's a shame. And that's the thing that people most care about, in my opinion. They care about the border a lot, and we discussed the border at great length. It's nice to have a
Yeah, yeah.
forum like this where I can discuss something at length. And by the way, you think Biden could do this interview? Do you think that Kamala could do this interview? They would take a pass on
No, they
you.
could not.
So they don't need Elon. They don't need Elon screaming out questions. It's pretty sad when you think that somebody that does this for a living can't answer a question or is afraid to do an interview. And in her case, with a very friendly interview, she's got all friendly interviewers. It's pretty sad.
Yes,
But the
absolutely.
big thing now is the
Well,
economy, Elon.
yeah,
And as much as
yeah,
I mean, I view nuclear as the single most important thing, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't understand that. But it doesn't have to. If I understand it, that's all you need. Because if I was president, you're not going to have that kind of a problem. But the thing that they really is making them angry is what Kamala and Biden have allowed to happen to the economy. It's a disaster with inflation. The inflation, it
yeah,
doesn't matter what you make. The inflation has eaten you alive. If you're a worker or if you're just a middle income person, you can't afford. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, people were saving a lot of money. Today, they're using
yeah.
all their money and borrowing money just to live. It's a horrible thing
Right.
that's happening, and we'll end that
Well, I
quickly.
think a lot of yeah, a lot of people just don't understand where inflation comes from. Inflation comes from government overspending because the checks never bounce when it's written by the government. So if the government spends far more than it brings in, that increases the money supply, and if the money supply increases faster than the rate of goods and services,
That's
that's inflation. Um, so really, we need to have we need to reduce our government spending, and we need to re-examine. I think we need like a government efficiency commission to say like, hey, where are we spending money that's sensible? Where is it not sensible?
Right.
And we need to live within our means. We're currently adding, I think, $1 trillion to the deficit roughly
Right.
every 100 days.
That's right.
And the interest payments on the national debt have now exceed the defense budget. It's on the order of $1 trillion,
It's interest.
and it keeps
Yeah, I
growing.
rebuilt our military, largely rebuilt our military, did a great job on it, which was so important. We had jets, we had fighters that were, and bombers that were 70 years old. And we did a great job in that. Then by the way, we gave 85 billion of it back to Afghanistan, if you can believe it. We gave them 85 billion. They're one of the largest sellers
Yeah.
of military equipment in the world. They're selling what we gave them. That was one of the most embarrassing days in the history of our country. But if you think about, let's go back to the economy. We have to bring energy
Yeah.
prices down. Energy started at the price of gasoline. Now your cars don't require too much gasoline, so you have a good, and you do make a great product. I have to say, I have to be honest with you.
Thank
That
you.
doesn't mean everybody should have an electric car, but these are minor details. But your product is incredible. But the
Thank you.
gasoline, Elon, is the cost of energy. Not only gasoline, it's the cost of heating your house and cooling your house. That has
Sure.
to come down. It's gone up 100%, 150, and 200%, and that has to come down. When that comes down, and we're going to
Yeah.
drill, baby, drill. They stopped drilling, and then they went back to drilling because they went back to the Trump policy. But if they won the day after they get into office, this country will go out of business because they're going to go to an energy policy that's not sustainable. Wind and different things. You're not going to have anything.
Yeah.
And I know you're a big fan of the AI, and I have to say
Yeah.
that AI, and this is shocking to me, but AI requires twice the energy that the country already produces for everything. So you're going to have to build. We're going to have to build a lot of energy if our country will be competitive with China, because that's our primary competitor for this on the AI. You're
Sure.
going to need a lot of
Well, I mean,
electricity. You're going to need tremendous
yeah,
electricity, like almost double what we produce now for the whole country, if you can believe it.
sure. Well, just going, back to this, like this basic thing, which that people try to make it sound complicated, but it's not. But inflation is caused by government
Right.
overspending. Would you agree that we need to take a look at government
Yes.
spending and have perhaps a government efficiency commission that just tries to make the spending sensible and so the country lives within its means, just like a person
The
does?
waste is incredible, and nobody
It
negotiates
is.
prices. You used to have a lot of people making jets, and you end up with two companies, and they'll probably try and merge at some point. I mean, I went through it, like Air Force, just a thing like Air Force One. One of the first documents they asked me to sign, a general said, "Sir, would you please sign this document?" And what is it? Air Force One. That's with Boeing, which is basically two planes, two 747s. And the price was
Yeah.
$5.7 billion for two planes. Now,
Wow.
now they're highly sophisticated.
That's insane.
They're even nicer than your plane, okay? But much more sophisticated. They're very, I won't say what's on it, but they got a lot of stuff on it. Anyway, but it's 5.7.
That's a crazy
It's
number.
a crazy number, but I said, I'm not going to pay 5.7. I'm not going to do it. I said, who made the deal? Obama and his people. I said, well, then I know the deal's no good. I'm not going to do it. And over a course of about 4 weeks, by my saying I'm not going to do it, I got the price reduced by $1.6 billion for the exact same plane, other than we had a nicer paint job, if you want to know the truth. But for the exact same plane, I saved one. And I said to Boeing, man, you guys must make a lot of money if you can reduce the price by that. But now what I do hear is that they're going back to the Biden administration and wanting big cost overruns, because they see these dopey suckers in there, and they'll end up getting some of the money back. But I shaved it by $1.6 billion for the exact same plane. And you can now take that and multiply that out times thousands of other
Exactly.
items.
Multiply it
Yeah,
by a
the
zillion,
numbers are
and yeah.
astronomical. I agree with you.
Well, I mean, I think it would be great to just have a government efficiency commission that takes a look at these things and just ensures that the taxpayer money, the taxpayers' hard-earned money, is spent in a good way. And I'd be happy to help out on such a commission.
I'd love
if it were formed.
Well, you're the greatest cutter. I mean, I look at what you do. You walk in and you just say, "You want to quit?" They go on strike. I won't mention the name of the
So
company.
you just heard
they
it.
go on strike,
Elon
and
Musk
you
is
say,
going to
"That's
be
okay,
on the
you're all
administration.
gone." You're all gone. So every one of you is gone, and you are the greatest. You would be very good. Oh, you would love it. But if you look at Argentina.
Well, I'd be happy to help
By the way,
out.
congratulations.
Yeah.
I just looked at the number of people that are listening to you and I chat. We'll call it a chat. But congratulations. This is very good. I mean, it's great. And you're an interesting character. The new head of a place called Argentina, and he's a big,
Malay's awesome.
he's great. And he's a big MAGA fan, that he ran on MAGA. And he took it to an extreme too. He ran on MAGA, and I hear he's doing really a terrific job. It's called Make Argentina Great Again. It worked out perfectly. He came in, he bought a lot of hats, he brought everything, but he's doing a big job. He really cut. And I'm hearing they're starting to do pretty well. Inflation's getting down. They had like 2,000%.
Exactly.
They had inflation like.
He's going to bring a lot of lithium
not
to Elon
normal
Musk, too.
inflation. They had the real deal. But we're going to have that pretty soon. I think we have the worst inflation we've had in 100 years. They say it's 48 years. I don't believe it. I think we have the worst. They don't include a lot of the items that should be included.
Yeah. Well, it's just from government overspending and not spending taxpayer money effectively, and having just like so many departments you can't even name them all, and what Malay is doing is he's cutting government spending, he's simplifying things, he's putting in regulations that make sense, and Argentina overnight is experiencing a giant improvement in prosperity, but it's also a lesson for the United States, which is that Argentina used to be one of the most prosperous countries in the world. In the I think in the 30s, 40s, and because of bad government policy, it ruined the country. And if you take Venezuela, for example, Venezuela should be incredibly prosperous. They have phenomenal reserves of everything, oil, everything, and it should be prosperous. But if the government's wrong, it impoverishes the people. And so I think we should not be complacent in the United States in thinking that and taking our prosperity for granted, because if with bad government policy, we can run the country into the ground. And that's just something people should bear in mind. Don't take prosperity for granted.
Well, think of education. So we're ranked at the bottom of every list of the top 40. We're ranked number 40, number 38. Norway, Switzerland, Sweden, different countries are ranked good. Actually, China's pretty close to the top. They're a top 6 or 7. But we're ranked at the bottom, almost at the bottom, 38, 39, 40. In other words, horrible. And yet we spend more per pupil than any other country in the world. So we spend more. And what I'm going to do, one of the first acts, and this is where I need an Elon Musk. I need somebody that has a lot of strength and courage and smarts. I want to close up Department of Education, move education back to the states, where states like Iowa, where states like Idaho, not every state will do great, because states that basically aren't doing good now. You look at Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. He's terrible. He does a terrible job. So he's not going to do great with education. But of the 50, I would bet that 35 would do great, and 15 of them, or 20 of them, will be as good as Norway. Norway is considered great. You can name them. I mean, they're so good. Some of these countries are so good. But if you go into some of these really well-run states, we have states that don't know what debt is. We have states that have low taxes, no debt, everybody working. They're really well-run. Sure. And maybe they have certain advantages in terms of location, in terms of, the land or the sun and the water and the whole thing. There are a lot of advantages that some people have. But if you moved education back to the 50, you'll have some that won't do well. But they'll actually be forced to do better, because it'll be a pretty bad situation. But if you think about it, you'll have some of these states. I'll bet you'd have 30, 35 states. It'll be much better. And you know what it'll cost? Less than half what it is in Washington. And these people don't care about the students in these, faraway states. And it'd be unbelievable.
Yeah. I think you're making a good point in that if the states have to if each state has to compete against other states, then people will naturally move to states where
we said it's a badly run state. I could go through. I got so many friends that are in those states, even if they're Democrats. I hate to mention certain states, but Illinois is badly run with Pritzker. He's a real loser. But some of these places are just badly run. But it's almost going to force them to run better, and they won't do it good initially. But you're not going to do worse than you're doing right now. And I would say that the cost, you would cut your cost by 50 or 60%. And you'd have a little monitor. You want to make sure they're teaching English, as an example. Give us a little English, right?
Sure. Right. Yeah. No, but I mean, to what? I mean, some of these governors are doing so badly. I mean, they got so many people moving out of their state. They should get U-Haul sales.
It's actually amazing.
It's just people moving out.
Isn't it amazing to you as a businessman that they can even survive? Like Illinois, so many people are leaving, and you wonder, how do they survive? I mean, how do they survive? I saw where you left California, and you moved to Texas. Texas does a great job. But, I mean, I just wonder, how do these states survive when big businesses, a big oil company just left California, as you know, and they moved to Texas. How do these big states survive when they lose so many businesses and their taxes are already really high? The taxes are among the highest taxes. You almost wonder, how do they continue on? And in many cases, the governors don't do a good job, and they're crime-ridden places. You wonder, how do they continue to just go on? It's not a good situation.
I mean, I think the only thing that's going to force some of these states to change is if they risk bankruptcy and they're not getting bailed out by the federal
Right,
government.
right. Well,
That's
you're
the
going to
only thing
have
that's going to
that.
get them to change.
You remember the
Yeah.
area in California where they had that, where I guess somebody had sticky fingers and they stole a lot of money, and they went into a form of chapter, and it was very
Yeah,
nasty
yeah.
for a period of time. But now it's probably the most popular place in all of California. So at some point, something like that may have to happen. But the problem is, you can't penalize people that loan money to the state when you have incompetent people like a Pritzker. Look, the family didn't want him in the family business, and then he ends up being governor of Illinois. So what is he going to be? Is he going to be a great governor? And you have people. I
From
could
the
name
Hyatt
every one of them.
family,
I
the
got to
Hyatt
know every one
hotels.
of these, and some are very good, and some are just horrible.
Well, I think that the larger point here too, as you're saying, like a lot of people are concerned about the economy, a lot of people are concerned about inflation, and inflation is effectively a tax on people that save money,
Yeah.
and for people that are working day to day, it's just a form of taxation, and if we can solve the government spending problem, we'll solve the inflation problem, which means people will have a better standard of living,
Yeah.
and that's a really big
Well,
deal.
the people that got hurt worst are the people that did it the way they were taught to do it all through, their younger life and their young life and their whole life. The people that saved money and then they got no interest on their money and inflation destroyed them. And frankly, they were almost better off if they didn't do anything like that. I mean, those people have been absolutely decimated, and we're going to bring those people back and help those people. We've got to get the prices down. When I look at bacon costing 4 or 5 times more than it did a few years ago, when you look at some of the food products in grocery stores, people go, they can't believe it. They used to be able to buy a whole cart, and today, a lot of people just don't have the money. They go in and they can't buy anything. They look at it's sticker shock. They call it sticker shock, right?
I think it really just comes, like I said, I think it just comes down to really, I guess, two things, which is that if you solve government overspending, you solve inflation, which improves living standards of the average person, and then if you deregulate, like have sensible regulations, so because a lot of the regulations are nonsensical and cause the cost to be extreme for no reason, but unless you've got effective deregulation, like Reagan did a great job on deregulation in the 80s, but it's been 40 years since we had anyone really. I mean, during your administration, we made some progress, but I think there's an opportunity to make, I think, radical progress with sensible regulation. If
Elon,
those two things, those are the big deals.
We set a record. We did more deregulation and more restrictions on all of the different businesses than any other president. Remember, I had the rule for every one we put in, you have to get rid of 10 or 12. And we did radical cuts on all of that. And a lot of that's being put back by this administration. And we did radical cuts on things that weren't necessary. But we were all set. We had the best economy ever maybe in the world. And then what happened is COVID came in, and we had to focus on that, and nobody knew what it was. And I always say I got good marks on economy, good marks on military. We knocked out ISIS. We did so many different things. We rebuilt. But, I never got the credit that we really deserved on what we did with COVID. We never got the credit. But had that not happened, a gift from China, from Wuhan, came in from Wuhan, the Wuhan labs, and I always said it.
I think that was from our own government, actually.
But had that not happened, we were set to start reducing debt. We were going to reduce taxes further. I gave the largest tax cuts, and we were going to reduce taxes still further.
All done on
for
purpose.
middle-income people, not only businesses. But we did it for businesses because they're the ones that's why we had the great job numbers. But we were set to really start reducing debt. And, we're sitting on the biggest pile of liquid gold anywhere in the world, bigger than Saudi Arabia, bigger than Russia. And we were going to drill, and we were going to make so much money. We were going to supply Europe with oil. I had stopped the Russian pipeline, and we were going to supply them with oil and gas. We were going to make a fortune. And then the COVID came in, and we really had to divert. Then what happened is when they came in, we kept a lot of businesses alive. If I didn't do what we did, we would have had a 1929 type depression. But the problem is when Biden came in, he got trillions of dollars and just started spending it stupidly. You didn't need it anymore. You know, we got over that bad period where everybody was dying and feeling, you know, it was just not a good period. Interestingly, you know, during his administration, many more people died during his administration of COVID than during my administration, and we really got the brunt of it. But people don't realize more people died during his administration than ours. But it diverted us from doing what I wanted to do. But we had the greatest for, you know, almost 3 years. We had the great, and you know that probably better than anybody. So many of your friends said to me, the best years we've ever had in business were during the Trump years, and also said that African American, Hispanic American were so incredible. They were having the best. Asian American women, men, young people without a diploma, young people that graduated from the best colleges, from MIT, from the Wharton School, from all of the great colleges, Harvard. They were doing better, and people without a diploma were doing better, and everybody was happy. And then COVID came, and we had the problem is they spent trillions and trillions of dollars. They wasted. They shouldn't have taken any money, and we wouldn't be having inflation right now, which is killing our country.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I should probably say something about, like, you know, maybe my views on, you know, climate change and oil and gas, because I mean, I think I'm probably different from what most people would assume, because my views are actually pretty, I think, moderate in this regard, which is that I don't think we should vilify the oil and gas industry and the people that have worked very hard in those industries to provide the necessary energy to support the economy. And if we were to stop using oil and gas right now, we would all be starving, and the economy would collapse. So it's, you know, I don't think it's right to sort of vilify the oil and gas industry, and I, you know, the world has a certain demand for oil and gas, and it's probably better if the United States provides that than some other countries, and it would help with prosperity in the U.S. And at the same time, obviously, my view is like, we do over time want to move to a sustainable energy economy, because eventually you do run out of, I mean, you run out of oil and gas. It's not there for, it's not infinite. And there is some risk. I think the risk is not as high as you know, a lot of people say it is with respect to global warming. But I think if you just keep increasing the parts per million in the atmosphere long enough, eventually it actually simply gets uncomfortable to breathe. People don't realize this. If you go past 1,000 parts per million of CO2, you start getting headaches and nausea. And so we're now in the sort of 400 range. We're adding, I think, about roughly 2 parts per million per year. So I mean, it still gives us. So what it means is, like, we still have quite a bit of time, but so there's not, like, we don't need to rush, and we don't need to, like, you know, stop farmers from farming, or, you know, prevent people from having steaks, or basic stuff like that. Like you can leave the farmers alone.
I agree. How crazy is that? Where I mean, you have farmers that are not allowed to farm anymore and have to get rid of their cattle, and the whole world is a little crazy. But it's largely taken its lead from us. I do say, though, I've heard in terms of the fossil fuel, because even to create your electric car and create the electricity needed for the electric car, you know, fossil fuel is what really creates that at the generating plants. And, you know, so you sort of can't get away from it at this moment. I mean, someday you might be able to. But I do hear we have anywhere from 100 to 500 years left. You know, much of it hasn't even been found yet.
Yeah.
But there are tremendous, like Anwar. I got Anwar in Alaska approved. Ronald Reagan couldn't do it. Nobody could do it. Everybody tried. Nobody could do it. I got it approved. The first thing that Biden did was unimprove it, to get rid of it. He ended it. His secretary went in and she ended it. And what a disgrace. That's Anwar. That's bigger, or they think it could be bigger than Saudi Arabia in Alaska. Could be bigger than Saudi Arabia. But they went in and they terminated it. And I'll get it going very quickly, because not only is it big for Alaska, I mean, you talk about economic development, that for the United States, I mean, that is, they say, bigger than Saudi Arabia or the same size, and pure, really good stuff. And, they end it. So I think we have, perhaps hundreds of years left. Nobody really knows. But during that time, something will
estimate,
come around that will be
yeah,
very good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, my estimate would be, a little more aggressive than that, but it's not the sort of like we're all going to die in 5 years stuff. That's obviously BS. Um, but I mean, my view is like if you just look at sort of the parts per million that increments every year, you get sort of 2 or 3 parts per million every year of CO2. Uh, I mean, I think some of that it's problematic if it accelerates, if you start going from 2 or 3
Right.
to say 5, and then there may be some situations where you get just a step change increase in the CO2, and I think we don't want to get too close to 1,000 ppm, because like that's actually makes it uncomfortable to breathe. Like just existing in 1,000 ppm CO2 is uncomfortable. That's like that's considered like an industrial hazard.
Right.
Just so it's that's actually, you start getting headaches and stuff. So it's even without global warming, it's not comfortable to live. So you don't want to get too close to that. But I mean, I think we've got. I think we want to just move over, and like, and if I don't know, 50 to 100 years from now, we're I don't know, mostly sustainable. I think that'll probably be okay. So it's not like the house is on fire immediately, but I think it is something we need to move towards. And on on balance, it's probably better to move there faster than slower. But like I said, without vilifying the oil and gas industry, and without causing hardship in the short term, I think this can be done. Without people can still have a stake, and they can still drive gasoline cars, and it's okay. It's like, it's not. I don't think we should vilify people for it, but I think we should just generally lean in the direction of sustainability. And I actually think solar is going to be a majority of Earth's energy generation in the future, and it's certainly trending that way. And so you get the solar power, combine that with batteries, so because obviously the sun doesn't shine at night, and then you use that to charge the electric cars, and you have a long-term sustainable solution. And that's what Tesla's trying to move things towards, and I think we've made a lot of progress in that regard. But when you look at our cars, we don't believe.
Problem, because you have, as I
Sorry.
said, 5 countries. We have major nuclear, and probably some others are getting there, and that's very dangerous. That's where you need a strong American president, because you don't want to have this proliferation. But you have 5 countries and getting more. China is much less than us right now, but they're going to catch us sooner than people think. They're way lower. Russia and us are number one, and I mean, we're sort of tied. And China is far behind, but they're developing at a level that you're not surprised to hear, very fast. they'll end up catching up, maybe even
Yeah.
surpassing. But to me, the biggest problem is not climate change. It's not, and everything's a problem, but it's degrees. To me, the big problem
See you
is
later. I'm
the
getting bored
nuclear power. The
myself.
power of nuclear is so great. And when I talk
Yeah,
about
nuclear
I'll
power
prevent
is
world,
underrated. It's
I'll
awesome.
prevent World War III,
Yeah.
I will. But the truth is that you have to, because this is no longer army tanks going back and forth and shooting at each other. This is a level of destruction and power that nobody's ever seen before.
Yeah, and actually, there's the bad side of nuclear, which is a nuclear war, very bad side. But there's also, I think, nuclear electricity generation is underrated.
You're right.
And it's actually, people have this fear of nuclear electricity generation, but it's actually one of the safest forms of electricity generation. It's just a huge misunderstanding. And if you look at the injuries and deaths, caused by, say, I'm not going to try to pick on coal mining, but just any kind of mining operation, and there's a certain number of injuries and deaths per year. And you compare that to nuclear. Nuclear is actually way better. So it's underrated as an electricity source, and I think it's something that's worth reconsidering. But there's so much regulation that people can't get it done. So that
maybe they'll have to change the name. The name is it's a rough name. There are some areas
it's rough
when you see what happened in
good bad branding.
Right,
The
we'll have to
rough.
rebrand it. We'll have to give it a good name. We'll name it after you or something. No, it has a branding problem. When you see what happened,
it does have a branding problem.
When you see what happened in Japan, where they say you won't be able to go on the land for about 3,000 years. Did you ever see that? And in Russia, where they had the problem, where they there's a lot of bad things happened, and they have a problem. And they say that in 2,000 years, people will start to occupy the land again. You realize it's pretty bad.
No, that's not true.
But you're right about it. It's amazing.
It's actually not that bad. So like after Fukushima happened in Japan, like people were asking me in California, are we worried about like a nuclear cloud coming from Japan? I'm like, no, that's crazy. It's not even dangerous in Fukushima. I actually flew there and ate locally grown vegetables on TV to prove it. And I donated a solar water treatment, a solar powered system for a water treatment plant. And
but you haven't been feeling so well lately, and I'm worried about it.
No, but I mean,
I'm only kidding.
It's fine, It's like Hiroshima.
I don't believe
and
that.
Nagasaki were bombed, but now they're like full cities again. So it's really not
Fukushima. So you can go back there and
so it's not as scary as people think, basically. But,
I don't know about that.
See. I mean, are there some other topics we should touch on? Like lawfare. I think we need to be concerned about
what they've done to this country.
Obviously.
Yeah. Well, we just won the big case in Florida. This was a Biden administration did something that's never been done in this country, and that's go after their political opponent, me, with this nonsense and just nonsense. And the big case in Florida we won, but they always pick a judge and a jury, and they use local DAs, they use the local attorney generals, like Fani, Fani, spelled Fani, Fani. And it's all a big hoax, and it's all run from there, like in Manhattan.
So you can go back to Fukushima and actually live there and not have to worry about.
One of the top people from the Justice Department went in, ran Manhattan, ran the state. The Letitia James deal was run by.
Are people moving back to Fukushima? I don't even know.
They've never done this before, and they set up.
I don't know that much about it, so
very bad precedent. It's
let me know.
Called lawfare,
maybe I had a whole different wrong idea about it.
It's a terrible thing, and. Never happened.
Same thing with.
It does happen in banana republics in third world countries,
but
it's never happened. And the
Chernobyl.
incredible thing is, it actually drove my numbers up because people see.
I didn't realize people went back there and can actually live there.
In all fairness, like a conversation like this, where I can talk about it and people understand. I mean, you fight for election integrity and you end up getting indicted because you're fighting for election integrity. And when the day comes that you can't fight for election integrity, you don't have a country anymore. So what happens is they went after their political opponent, me. Now Biden's, close to vegetable stage, in my opinion. Okay, I looked at him today on the beach, and I said, why would anybody allow him? The guy could barely walk. Why would anybody allow him? Does he have a political advisor that thinks this looks good? He thinks this looks good because It looks so bad, and it's ridiculous. I mean, and he's been doing that for a long time. You know, he can't lift the chair. The chair weighs about 3 ounces. It's meant for children and old people to lift, and he can't lift it. The whole thing is crazy.
Well, he's clearly not, I mean, he's clearly like, we just don't have a president right
You
now.
don't
That's
have a
just obviously
president,
the
and
case.
she's going to be worse than him because she is a San Francisco liberal who destroyed San Francisco.
Crushes their long
and
term.
then as Attorney General, she destroyed California.
So if you were there,
you talk about
living,
location, and we're talking about
do
the
more
sun
people
and the water.
contract,
there's nothing better than California.
cancer or whatever
She
it
has
might be
destroyed
from the
that.
exposure
she was the
over
original
a
DA. She was
longer
the
term?
original in San Francisco. She was the original Attorney General in California. What she has done to California is, well, you know better than I do. You just left California for a lot of those reasons. And what she's done with crime, with cashless bail, where you kill somebody. I mean, we have states now you kill somebody and they let you out right away. I mean, you don't have to even put up, and then they never find the people unless they kill again, and then they let them out again. Our country is becoming a very dangerous place. And she is a radical left San Francisco liberal, and now she's trying to protect. Now she's looking like she wants to be more Trump than Trump, if that's possible. I don't think it's possible, but she wants to be more Trump than Trump.
Yeah.
I want a wall.
I think that's,
she wants to release all the prisoners that are in detention, and some of these guys are really bad.
right.
That just came
Yeah, I
out
just saw
today.
that.
She doesn't want to build the wall, even though the walls work. Walls and wheels. You know, in your business, everything you do is obsolete. Almost, well, not the tunnels, but everything is obsolete. Even your rocket ships, they're like a month later, they're obsolete. You find a better way to. The only thing that's not obsolete is a wall and a wheel. And the wall, you know, I built hundreds of miles of wall, and that's why we had such good numbers. I was going to add 200 miles. We bought it. We could have flipped it up in 3 weeks, and they sold it for 5 cents on the dollar. That meant, I said, wow, that means that they actually do want to have open borders. She wants to have open borders, and now she's going like she's tough on the border. It's such a lie.
Yeah, this is simply not true. This is simply not true.
No, and everybody knows it's not true. It's a disgrace that she can say it.
No, I mean, obviously, what's happening sort of overnight is they're rewriting history and making Kamala sound like a moderate when in fact she is far left, like far left.
Worse than Bernie Sanders. She is considered more liberal by far than Bernie Sanders. She's a radical left lunatic, and if she's going to be our president, very quickly, you're not going to have a country anymore. And she'll go back to all of the things that she believes in.
By the way, can you imagine listening to her give speeches and cackle?
She believes in no fracking, zero.
That's part of the reason why I think she's not talking and giving any speeches right now at all.
I really want to see fracking. If they got in, the day she got in, she'll end fracking. And by the way, if people didn't think that,
there's
the
so
lunatics
much
that really believe in
her
that,
background in the beginning
they
of
won't vote for
2000
her.
when she was
like the Palestinians.
district
and
attorney
Israel.
for San Francisco and AG California.
So anti-Israel, and she's bad for both. Biden actually did something
Willie
that
Brown
was impossible.
stories.
Both sides hate him. You know, both sides. That was a hard thing to do. Unification.
The Catholic Church sexual abuse scandal.
I mean, Netanyahu came to give a talk.
It goes on and on and on.
Joint Senate and House sitting, and I was there, and Kamala stood him up. You know, what does that say?
I think it's highly disrespectful. And I say, if you're a Jewish person or if you believe in Israel, if you're a person that, is very pro-Israel, if you vote for her, it's worse than Biden. And Biden was bad. But if you vote for her, you ought to have your head examined. And you see tonight, as we're doing this, I'm seeing reports coming that they expect an attack tonight or tomorrow from hundreds and maybe thousands of rockets. Their Iron Dome, as they call it, as we all call it, but their shield that they build, that can be swamped. We'll use the term that's appropriate, swamped. But they swamp it by shooting enough missiles. You know this better than anybody. By shooting enough missiles, they can't defend themselves.
Well, that's how the Democratic Party works.
They
just decided, hey, Kamala Harris is going to be the nominee.
Some people think they're looking to do.
What do the voters think about that?
And we have no leadership. There's no respect for the United States of America with these people. And I'm telling you, she'll be worse than him because she's a believer in being radical left, and he wasn't.
I think you're right. I mean, you really, it's important for the public. That
She's
maybe listens
pretending to
this
be black
say,
when
to
she's
look
actually
at,
Indian.
Kamala's track record, before the last month, and say, is that a track record you agree with? And I think if you're an independent moderate, you definitely would not agree with it, because it is her behavior has been far left, and we're seeing just an overnight propaganda attempt to rewrite history and make it sound like Kamala's moderate when she in fact is not moderate.
Well, her running
that,
mate approved, signed into legislation, tampons in boys' bathrooms. Okay, now that's all I have to hear. Tampons in boys' bathrooms.
These are Marxists. Call them for what they are. They're Marxist communists.
She picked this guy because he was the closest to her. A lot of people thought she picked sort of the opposite.
Is a Marxist.
But she picked an anti-Israel, radical left person. But she is far worse, they say, than Bernie Sanders. If we have her as a president, if we have a Democrat at this moment as a president, I don't think our country can survive.
I think it's a massive. I think we're in massive trouble, frankly, with the Kamala administration, and that's my honest opinion. And I think really it's essential that you win for the good of the country for this election. And I mean, that's understating my opinion. Now, you may have seen this, but I got a letter from the EU Commission, saying,
I talked about this earlier
on during this discussion that we're having, and there's a lot of attempts to do censorship and to force censorship even on Americans from other countries, and what do you think about that?
Well, I know the European Union very well. They take great advantage of the United States in trade, as you know.
So does Israel.
We, through a different forum,
they take advantage of
us
in other ways.
And yet, if you build a car in the United States, you can't sell it in Europe. You just can't sell it. It's impossible. The same thing with our farmers. Our farmers find it very difficult to do business. We have a deficit with them of $250 billion, which people don't know. It sounds so nice, the European Union, but let me tell you, they're not as tough as China, but they're bad. And I let them know it. And that's probably why they notified you. No, they don't treat our country well. We defend them, with Ukraine. So we're in for $250 billion, and they're in for about $71 billion, and they have the same size. If you add up the European nations that, in terms of an economy, it's about the same size, wouldn't you say, as us? And they're in, and they're in much greater risk. They're right there. We have an ocean separating us from, in this case, the enemy would be Russia. It used to be for the Soviet Union, but let's assume they're close enough. And what happens is they're in for 70-something million. I think even less than that, billion. And we're in for about 250 billion, and it could be a lot higher than that. And I say, why aren't you going to equalize? Why aren't they paying what we're paying? And they're in much more, it's much more important for them because of the fact that, they're right near there. I mean, they're all sort of in that location. We're not. But they should, and I did it with NATO. There were only 7 countries that were paid up in NATO out of 28 at the time. And the United States was subsidizing.
Have a lot to say about NATO, which has a lot to do with what's going on with all this illegal immigration.
And I said, I went
Europe
in and I said, you got to pay up. If you don't pay up, we're not going to defend you any longer. I took a lot of heat, but you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in. And
I think a lot of the public isn't aware of the fact that the United States pays a disproportionate share of the NATO expenses.
And NATO is one of the reasons why we have all of the problems that we have.
Yeah, well, I mean, the point of NATO is defending Europe, and it's it's like, then okay, well, why is the United States paying disproportionately more to defend Europe than Europe? That doesn't make
Actually,
sense.
I should
That's
say it's
unfair.
the UN,
and
not NATO.
that is an appropriate thing to address.
Well, when you talk about cost cutting and savings and everything else, I mean, honestly, look, there's nobody that feels worse about the Ukraine situation than I do, because I know it would have never happened. I know Zelensky. He was very honorable to me, because when they went with the Russia hoax, and they said I had a phone call with him. He said it was a perfect phone call. It was a great phone call. He could have grandstanded and
NATO
said,
is the
"Oh,
reason why we're
he
having to
was very
deal with
threatening." He said, "No, it was a very nice phone call."
Ukraine.
I called him up to congratulate him on his win, and you end up getting impeached because these people are lunatics. I was talking about the difference from the people within and the enemies on the outside. In many cases, the people from within are more dangerous for our country than the Russias and the Chinas. If you have a smart president, you're not going to have a problem with them. You're going to do things.
Yeah.
Now they've taken advantage of us
absolutely.
incredibly, but you're going to do things with the right person.
Yeah, well, I think it's obvious that you're a believer and an advocate of free speech, because during your first term as president, you were attacked relentlessly every day, often very unfairly with with false attacks, and you didn't try to shut down the media. You didn't try to inhibit their freedom of speech, and I think that says a lot.
Well, the good thing is that you and I have, and some people, very few, we can get the word out. Although sometimes it's hard because they don't want to print it, like we're having a great conversation right now. Kamala wouldn't have this conversation. She can't because she's not smart. She's not a smart person, by the way. She can't have this conversation. And Biden, we don't even have to talk about it. I mean, he couldn't have this conversation. He would have given up on the first half of a question. He would have walked out. He would have said, "Where am I? Where am I going?" So anyway, but no, he wouldn't have this.
That's true.
Not a lot of people would have this conversation, but we cover a lot of territory. But the beauty is that we can have a conversation, and I'm able to get it out without, because I get treated unfairly.
This is a really big point. You can actually have a conversation with you.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
And you can't have a conversation with Biden or Kamala. It's like it's not possible.
That's
so this is like talking to an NPC.
No.
So it's just impossible.
Well, but think of it. We need a man or person who's unbelievably sharp in order to stop all the nuclear danger and all the dangers that I'm talking about. And I got along with all these. I got along with Kim Jong-un. We had dinner. We had everything. And he really liked me, and I got along with him really well. By the way, he's the absolute boss over there. A lot of people said, "Oh, do you think he really?"
That's for sure.
Let me tell you, I saw things that you don't want to know about. He is the boss. But we had a good relationship, and he doesn't like Biden. He considers him a stupid man, he said. He's a stupid man. Well, at least he speaks his mind. But, in this country, you're not sort of allowed to say it, but I guess you are. You should be allowed to say it if it's true. But we need smart people, and we need people that have an ability to lead. And she doesn't have that ability. Can you imagine? Now, Chairman Xi very well. Can you imagine her and him negotiating, or even standing together? It is, the whole concept is ridiculous. She is terrible. She's terrible. But she's getting a free ride. I saw a picture of her on Time Magazine today. She looks like the most beautiful actress ever to live. It was a drawing. And actually, she looked very much like our great First Lady, Melania. She didn't look like Camilla. That's right. But of course, she's a beautiful woman. So we'll leave it at that, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe I think part of what, people in America want to feel excited and inspired about the future. They want to feel like the future is going to be better than the past, and that America is going to do things that are greater than we've done in the past, reach new heights that make you proud to be an American, and excited about the future.
They want the American dream back. They want the American dream back. More important than anything else. It's like, you don't have that today because the people, they've been just sucked. They see incompetent people running our. The Biden thing is very interesting. People just found him to be incompetent, and when I debated him, I was like, "Is this for real?" It was.
Yeah, it was just absurd. But I think there are some grand projects that we could do. I mean, I think we could build a base on the moon. We could send American astronauts to Mars. We could build high-speed connections that are more advanced than anything else in the world between our cities, so people have fast transport. It's possible to solve traffic with tunnels. We've already made great progress in Vegas doing that, and and just do things that are exciting and inspiring and make the future feel like it's better than the past.
Well, I saw what you
Like,
did in Vegas, and I'll tell you, it was amazing. I got to see. I took a big glimpse at it, and it's incredible. It's incredible, and you could do that all over. You could do that all over. It's deep.
yeah,
You don't even need much structure, assuming you're in the right areas.
no, it's straightforward.
It's amazing.
So I think we could do some things that like China's got incredible high-speed rail between its cities, but I think it's actually possible with tunnels if with deregulation, with an ability to actually where it's like legal to actually do the tunnels. Then you could have high-speed tunnels that are actually better than anything else in the world for high-speed transport between cities, and that would be something that Americans can say, "Wow, okay, we've got something that's cooler than anyone else in the world." That's the kind of thing that makes you proud to be an American.
And much safer than surface trains, where there is a danger there. With crazy people, it's much safer, much better. And it's sad because I've seen some of the greatest trains. I find it fascinating, and I've seen the systems and how they work, and the bullet trains they call them, I guess, and they go unbelievably fast, unbelievably comfortable, with no problems. And we don't have anything like that in this country, not even close. And it doesn't make sense that we don't. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I think also like there's, I'm kind of hopping on the excess regulation, but I think something that like I think people can generally understand is that what happens with laws and regulations is that there's more and more of them every year, and unless there's a process to clean them up, eventually everything becomes illegal, and that actually it slows down the development of new technologies. I mean, if you take sort of like I think there's room for some reform at the FDA for improving the speed with which we approve drugs that could help save lives and improve people's lives. And
I worked very hard on that. We got that down to the lowest number ever, and we got therapeutics approved in the FDA that people can't even believe the speed. But I took them on. I don't think they like me too much, but I got things approved in the FDA at numbers that they wouldn't believe. And it's a very bureaucratic group. Actually, it's a fine group of people in many cases. I got to know a lot of them, but I was pushing them really hard for Regeneron, for so many different things that
not
were really
enough being done.
Pretty amazing. But the FDA
on pharmaceuticals for cancer.
It's 12 years to get a product approved. I got it down to 4, and I got some things done very quickly. But it's
from any president.
It's really something that is going to have to be worked on because it takes too long. Just takes too long.
Yeah, it just takes too long, and it's you end up in the same with the approval, but it just it takes years instead of something that I think could potentially.
There's just nothing about this that improves people's lives. That's all that compelling.
But I just wanted to sort of hop on this point that like there has to be an active process for reducing rules and regulations, because otherwise they just keep building up every year, and you get like hardening of the arteries, and eventually everything's illegal or takes forever, and then we just ossify as a society. We can't make any progress, and it's a really big deal.
Elon, just getting back to the FDA for 1 second, I got something done called Right to Try. This is where you can go in, and if you're terminally ill, you can use a space-age, medicine or whatever it may be. We have the best doctors, the best labs in the world. We really do. But people would go to other countries because you couldn't use the product, even if they thought it worked, because it's going through the FDA. I got it approved where you can, you basically, look, nobody wanted it. The doctors didn't want it because of the liability. The country didn't want it, our country, because they didn't want to get sued. These are people terminally ill. The insurance companies didn't want it, and the pharmaceutical companies. Nobody wanted it. I got everybody into a room, and we came up with an agreement that you won't get sued. And also, they didn't want it on their record. If somebody's terminally ill and they die after taking a drug, they didn't want that on their record. So we set a separate list if somebody was, so it wouldn't count as a negative. Okay. And as you know, we got it done. We have saved Right to Try. They've been trying to get this done for 58 years, and it sounds simple, but it wasn't, because the insurance companies, nobody wanted it, but we got it done.
Sure.
Somebody signs. You sign a document that you're not going to sue the insurance companies, the country. You're not going to sue anybody. and we got it done. And we're saving tens of thousands of lives. Right to try. Hopefully you never need it. But if you
Yeah.
do, you don't have to travel to Asia. You know, people,
Right.
if they had money, they go to Asia,
Yeah,
they
sure.
go to Europe. If they don't have money, they go home and die. That's what happened. They'd go home and die.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and actually, to give Europe some props here, it's like if a drug is approved in Europe, which has a crazy amount of regulations, it should obviously be approved in the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, they get more regulations than we do. So why would a drug be approved in Europe and not in the U.S.? That's crazy.
Well, we did it. We did something that really, they've been trying to do it for 50 years, and they just couldn't get it done, and I got it done. And it's really something. But you're right. Some people go to Europe because a drug isn't approved here, but it's approved in Europe, and it's a drug that, generally speaking, would
Yeah.
work. It's pretty crazy.
Absolutely.
You're right.
And I think so, as long as people are properly informed of the pros and cons, and like these are the risks, this is the risk, and like you make your own decision. That makes sense.
Well, I think just, in sort of closing up, and by the way, I'm looking at the numbers. You got a lot of people listening. I hope you don't get nervous, because you got a lot of people listening to you right now, like 60 million or something. What is that number? It's crazy. It's amazing how you can see that right away. What is the number? Wow. What is it?
Well,
Wow.
I think in terms of people
that's bigger than you said. You said 25, and you're much more than double that number, 25 million. I think you're going to be 60 or 70. And I guess over a period of time, hey, I congratulate you. Do I get paid for this or not?
Well, I think actually in terms of the number of people that will hear this conversation,
I really wish people could ask questions, but I know that's not going to happen.
It's going to be hundreds.
That's what they say. Yeah, that's good. Well, look, it's an honor. I just asked this: are you better off now, or were you better off when I was president? Nobody's better off now. People, we put out polls on that.
I just don't feel like
better off now.
Donald Trump
Inflation has killed it. And they also feel very unsafe. You look at what's
there
going
for
on
his
with
base, the
a
people
lot
that
of
were
different
there
things.
in
You look at the
2016.
riots we had at the colleges.
Let me know what you all think.
I mean, it's ridiculous, but
Right.
all of the
Do you
riots.
think that he's become more mainstream
and now they really
GOP
feel unsafe because you have a new
with
form
Chris
of crime. It's
LaCivita
called
and-
migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. Maybe I'll call it Kamala migrant crime. But
I
And
mean,
his,
with all these things, I always try to get to the ground
campaign
by just
managers.
asking people. And my mom lives in New York, and I was like, Mom, have any of your friends, been attacked or assaulted? And
Susie
she said,
Wiles.
yeah, 3 of her friends in 3 separate incidents were assaulted just in recent months, just walking around the streets of New York. And I said, well, what happened to the people that assaulted them? Oh, nothing. They got away. Like,
I'm really in the camp
they just
where
they always get away.
nothing's going. And they don't.
we're just paying attention too much to Israel.
They know that there's not.
We're not paying attention to
people are not gonna get
the real
prosecuted.
middle class,
They
the
just-
people
they
that
just
were
let,
really in his corner in the beginning.
Violent criminals out in New York.
The
with-
only
with
one that
zero
gets
bail.
prosecuted is Donald Trump. They prosecute Trump.
Yeah, I mean it's just obviously messed up.
Oh, it's terrible.
If violent criminals are getting off scot free, and meanwhile the New York spending massive resources prosecuting you, and it's like what's this and I think the sort of sensible public looks at this and says, what the heck's going on here? This is obviously abuse of the legal system. The legal system is supposed to be protecting the public from violent criminals, and it should be obviously allowing the
But
public
what
to
is
make
Donald
their
Trump
own
going to do if he
decision
gets
about
in
who should be
order to
president,
fix that?
as opposed
What
to,
is he going to
some,
do
legal
with
case.
the legal
Once
system?
they start this precedent, because this can go on with the next one. I mean,
Are they
this is a
going
very
to
bad precedent, what
hold
they're doing
these
in terms
judges
of, going
and
after their
attorneys
political
accountable?
opponent. And that's all it is. It's going after their political opponent. And then you get a judge who's
Is there going to be any
you know,
sort of
a
regulatory
strong
oversight when it
Democrat,
comes
and
to
I'm
these
being nice when I
attorneys
say that. In
and
many cases, crooked as hell. But you get a
judges?
judge, and you go into an area
And there's
where
not.
a Republican gets 3 or 4% of the vote, and you'll have a jury pool with people that hate Republicans or hate. It could also be the other way, though,
course.
because it could start the other way.
There is
areas where
no
they hate
oversight
Democrats.
on
And
prosecutorial
you get into a Pandora's
misconduct,
box. It's a very dangerous thing for this country, and a very
selective
dangerous thing even for the
prosecution,
state.
any of this stuff.
New
There's
York City
nothing.
is losing, New
absolutely.
York City and state lose a lot of business over what they did to me, because these people say, we don't want that to happen to us. That's no justice system. You have an unfair system of justice, and it's costing New York State a tremendous amount of money. People are leaving,
Yeah, the
and
guys are
companies are
talking
leaving,
about
and they
how
won't come
immigration
back.
is
So, all of that stuff is important, but the
okay, but
economy
illegal
now is the
immigration
big
is the
thing,
problem.
and we can
How
turn
about,
that economy
how about
up
helping
so
out the people
fast,
that are already here in
and
this
people are going to
country?
be back again. We're going to get rid of
Yeah.
inflation.
There's just
I think
no
there's a
help
lot of
for
Right,
people that are here right now.
absolutely.
So
And I just
There's
want to,
no
I
help
want to
for us. There's no
congratulate
help
you. You've
for
done an
the middle
amazing
class. There's
job.
no
You
help
are-
for the people
you
that
have
are already
definitely
here.
got
It's
a
all about.
fertile mind.
It's always about Israel. It's
We
about
can
other
talk- you and I can
countries.
talk
It's
about
about
rockets.
Let's see what China
Ukraine.
say.
It's
Thank you.
about.
Tunnels. We can talk
Never about
tunnels
anybody
and
here.
rockets and
I'm
electric
just
cars,
over
so
it. I'm
many
tired
things.
of listening to
And
it.
now
And this
you're
is
into
the
the
same
AI, and that's
bullshit
going to be another beauty.
conversation
So it's
Yeah.
that I've
it's an
heard a
amazing,
million times.
It's an amazing thing you've done, Elon. It's an amazing thing, and I
Well,
It's guys,
congratulate
two
you.
guys blowing each other.
I mean, thank you. And well, I mean, I just say here, here's to an exciting, inspiring future that people can look forward to and be optimistic and excited about what happens next. And that's the kind of future that I think you will bring as president, and that's why I endorse you.
Well, I appreciate that. That endorsement meant a lot to me. Not all endorsements mean that much, to be honest. Your endorsement meant a lot. And,
No,
we have
that's
a
a nice
phrase,
thing
make
to say.
America great again. It's pretty simple, but it really says that we want to make America great again. And we can
Not
do
for
it.
nothing, but Donald
We
Trump.
can do it now, but if we were going to suffer another 4 years like we've suffered for the last 4 years, I'm not sure the country can ever come back.
For a guy as
That's
rich
how
as he
bad
is,
it
I don't
It's so
understand how
bad.
he
We have
how he
to-
can
We have to
I
do
get
a
to
lot.
that
think
point
that's a
with the
very
way he
real risk.
talks.
It's a
I
big
don't
risk.
It's a very
understand
real
it.
risk.
Yeah.
And it's, I'd just like to note to people listening, like I've not been very political before, and if you look at my record, I've actually been. I'm not like sometimes they try to paint me as like a far right guy, which is absurd because I'm like making electric vehicles and solar and batteries, helping with the environment, and I actually I supported Obama. I stood in line for 6 hours to shake Obama's hand when he was running for president, and so it's not like I'm like some sort of dyed-in-the-wool long-term Republican. I'd call myself historically a moderate Democrat, but now I feel like we're really at a critical juncture for the country, and I think a lot of people thought the Biden administration would be a moderate administration, but it's not, and obviously we're just going to see an even further left administration with Kamala. That's my honest opinion. I mean, her dad is literally. I mean, she was brought up as an actual. Her dad is a Marxist economist. You can Google it. I mean, it's not a. We're not making this up. That's how she was brought up. So, and we want to have a future that is prosperous. And I think we're just at this critical juncture, and I think this is a case.
I mentioned that earlier that her dad is a Marxist.
America is going to at a fork in the road.
But they don't talk about this.
And I think it will.
They don't talk about what we have been. Every part of government has been taken over by communists.
Kamala is the opposite. Then that's my honest opinion. I'm gonna get attacked like crazy, and I've also experienced quite a bit of lawfare myself. But I'm just trying to tell people my honest opinion, and I haven't been really active in politics before, and I'm just trying to point out that my track record historically has been moderate, if not moderate, slightly left, and so this is to people out there who are in the moderate camp to say I think you should support Donald Trump for president, and I think it's actually a very important junction in the road, and we're in deep trouble if it goes the other way.
Well, I want to thank you, and
God.
I actually always did think of you as somewhat left. I must say that. So it's
Yeah.
even more of an honor to have your endorsement. I know how strong you feel about it, but when you think of her, San Francisco 15 years ago, I had a great friend, Bob Tish. He said it's the greatest city in America, and now it's almost not livable there. And California likewise. And she was involved in the destruction of San Francisco and the destruction of California. And she will be involved in the destruction of our country if people are so unwise as to elect her. And I hope that doesn't happen. And I hope the elections are going to be run honestly. And we're going to turn this country around. We're going to do things and we can do it fairly quickly. And we have to get rid of the criminals that have been, given to us by other countries as they laugh. They laugh at us. They think we're stupid to accept these people. These are radical, stone-cold killers in many cases, and terrorists. And they're in our country by the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah,
And we have to take
yeah,
them out.
yeah. I mean, if I could summarize it, perhaps, I think these are issues that I think most people in America would agree with, which is that we want safe and clean cities, we want secure borders, we want sensible government spending, we want to restore both the perception and reality of respect in the judicial system, just stop the lawfare, and I think that's like, and how are those even right wing positions? I think those are just that's just common sense, and that's I mean, would you agree with that?
100%. I don't understand, the whole, they call it progressive. They don't like the word liberal anymore, but call it liberal or progressive. I don't understand how somebody could say that it's okay for them to empty prisons into our country. And again, I told you, their crime rates all over the world are going way down, which makes sense. In fact, the next time what we'll do is, if something happens with this election, which would be a horror show, we'll meet the next time in Venezuela, because it'll be a far safer place to meet than our country, okay? So we'll go, you and I will go, and we'll have a meeting and dinner in Venezuela, because that's what's happening. Their crime rate's coming down, and our crime rate's going through the roof, and it's so simple. And you haven't seen anything yet, because these people have come into our country, and they're just getting acclimated. And they don't know about being politically correct law enforcement or lack of law enforcement. And our police, I have to just end with this. We have great police. We have great law enforcement, but they're not allowed to do their job. They have to be able to do their job without being destroyed.
Well, absolutely, and it's obviously demoralizing if you're a police officer risking your life to arrest violent criminals who could kill you and do kill you sometimes, and then you arrest the violent criminal, and then the DA doesn't prosecute and just let the guy out.
Yeah.
Well, then, like, why should a police officer risk their life to arrest a violent felon?
Well, even worse, Elon,
if nothing's going to happen.
Even worse, they prosecute the police officer. They go after it, and they prosecute the police officer, and they take away his pension, they take away his job, he loses his family, he loses his house.
Well, I thought it was very telling, like incredibly telling, that when there was that case where sort of a gang of thugs beat up police officers. I think it was in Times Square in New York, and then nothing happened to those guys. They were let out, zero bail, and I think a bunch of them were given free tickets to California. Well, what is I mean, that is a gross indignity against the United States, and that's how, I mean, this is insane. Like, have we lost all pride? How can such a thing be allowed to occur?
I've never seen anything. We see where they get shot. It's a very dangerous profession, but it's something they're very proud of, and they want to be able to do their job. But I've seen them get shot. I've seen a lot of things. But I've never seen where these guys are standing in the middle of a big street, everybody watching them, and they're literally boxing, like punching, stand-up fighting a police officer. There were two of them, and yet about six of these guys, and they're punching the hell out of them. And in their own country, they would be dead if they did that. They'd be shot.
Yes.
They would be shot instantly. And, they come from these countries, and it's taking them a while to realize that we don't do that in this country. But in their own country, if they stood on a street and had a fight with a police officer, they would be shot. There's no political correctness. And it's such a sad, it's such a sad thing to see. And that's the reason you have crime, by the way, because we don't do anything about it.
Yeah, we just cannot have a situation where our police officers are beaten up on camera. By,
looking at Miriam Adelson, she looks exactly like Roseanne
Barr. Nothing happens to the guys that beat up the cops. I mean, and they're let out. This is unacceptable.
Well, we're going to change it, and we're going to get them out of the country. When I first got involved, they said you couldn't get them back to these countries. You couldn't take them back. In the case of Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, some others, you couldn't get them back. And I said, really? Oh, you can't get them back? Because under Obama, he couldn't get them back. They'd fly them in, and they'd put planes on the runways in these countries so you couldn't land a plane. They'd bring them back. And the generals told me, sir, we can't bring them back. The countries won't accept MS-13 gang members. They won't accept them. And I said, really, how much do we pay these various countries in terms of economic aid, which is also somewhat ridiculous? And the answer was $750 million. I said, good. Tell them they're in default, They're delinquent. We're not paying them anymore because they won't accept
Yeah,
it. And you know what happened? They all called me, every one of them. They said, we would be honored to take them back, sir. We would be honored. It was so easy. But it's one of those things. And we got it back. We took in so many, MS-13 is probably the worst gang in the world. They're the most vicious, violent. We took them out of here by the thousands and got them out of here. And their countries took them back. And because I said, you're not getting any more economic aid. And once I said that, they were nice. They wouldn't take them back for Obama. They wouldn't take them back for anybody. And now we have a problem because there's this guy, and they again.
I've been thinking that the
entire
time
with Biden because they don't respect him.
It's just gotta be done.
I noticed the exact same thing. That's funny. I just saw your
whether they're citizens or not citizens. We can't have because they won't prosecute citizens either. So not just illegals. So.
You didn't miss much.
You can't
unless you've been listening to this somewhere else.
Repeat violent offenders that are not that don't get incarcerated.
That's right.
I hate that sound when it sounds like somebody's
by definition continue to
it's gross.
Hurt people. And I think where part of this comes from is that there's and I do sort of consider myself liberal in some ways. I mean, it's just that you want to have empathy for people. Obviously, you want to have empathy for people. I totally agree with that. You want to have empathy, but you also have to have empathy for the victims of the criminals. And if you just have empathy for the criminals, it's actually
go to dinner somewhere.
It's not real. You're not thinking. You're one layer deep. Of course you did. Empathy. You got to say like, what if you don't incarcerate this person? Who are they going to hurt? They might kill someone, they might rape someone. If you don't incarcerate them, you have to have empathy for the victims. And there's a lack of empathy for the victims of the criminals and too much empathy for the criminals. It doesn't make sense. That's why you want to have.
It does make sense. It makes absolutely all the sense in the world. This is all by design by the communists. They want to destroy America.
Police officers the dignity and the respect.
These guys act as if this is all being done by mistake.
They can do a great job. But we have to let them do their job, and if we don't do that, it's going to all disappear. There's never been a society like this.
This is just it just happens. It's just the sun. It's just happening.
Happens, and I'm talking about violent crime, and it's going to get more violent because these are really.
This is a communist takeover. This is a communist.
Out of our country.
This is in the playbook.
Back to where because they were sent here by the presidents and by the various people that run.
How they plan to destroy America, and this is precisely.
And they're streetwise
one of the
people.
things that they do in
and
order
they really
to destroy
think
it.
that the USA is stupid. They think we're run by stupid people, and they happen to be right. But when I was there, we had no problem. We got them out. We took out thousands of MS-13 gang members. We brought them back. And now, again, it's the same old story. We don't do it. And they actually gave them a big increase in aid. They raised it up to billions of dollars, and they get nothing for it. So, I hope everybody's going to vote for Trump, and we're going to get this country straight. Yeah. And I didn't need this. I'm like you. I didn't need this. I had a very nice life. I did't need to go through court systems and go through all the other stuff and run at the same time. I have to run. I have to go through fake trials with,
mini golf.
In some cases, corrupt judges, totally corrupt judges. I didn't need it. I had a nice life. I have great locations. I have beautiful oceans that I have places. But I felt it was important. And if I had to do it over again, you probably think I'm crazy for doing it, actually. But if I had to do it over again, I would have done it over again because this is so much more important than me or my life. We're going to save this country. This country is going down. And these people are bad people that we're running against, and they're liars. They make statements. They do things that are so bad. They say they're going to make a strong border. They say they've been great on the border. And they've been the worst in history. They say they're going to stop crime.
Like, the facts speak for themselves.
It's so incredible.
Speak for themselves. Like it's gotten to the point where people just don't even bother reporting crime in a lot of cities because they know nothing is going to happen. That's what I hear anecdotally from people all the time. So it's just my values. I'm just saying to people out there, like the things I think are important for the future is like we've got to have safe cities, we've got to have secure borders, we've got to have sensible spending. And we've got to have deregulation, and so we can have a prosperous future. And then we want to have some exciting, sort of moonshot projects that people can get fired up about. And that's the future I'm looking for. And I'm pro-environment, but I'm not against. I'm not like I don't think we should vilify the oil and gas industry because they're keeping civilization going right now, and but I do think we want to move at a reasonable speed towards a sustainable energy economy. Those are my values, and I think and so I mean that's why I'm supporting you for president.
Well, I appreciate it. We're going to give incentive to companies to come into our country, not to leave our country. We're going to be giving tremendous incentives. We want companies to build here, not to build in other locations. And we want to create jobs. And again, it's about the American dream. You don't hear about the American dream anymore, Elon. You don't hear. You're the American dream in the truest sense. But you don't hear about the American dream anymore. And you're going to hear about it. People, they need that incentive to go out and do it. And they're going to love their lives. I mean, they're going to look forward to getting up in the morning and going to a job that they love, not a job that they can't stand, or not any job at all where they have no money, where they literally have no money. And then they end up with violence and lots of other problems. No, we're going to do some great things. And I learned a lot in the first. We had a great economy and all of that. We rebuilt the military. We did so much, but I also learned the best people. I learned the good people, the smart people, the dumb people, the people that can do things. The people, you learn. When I first came in, I tell people I was in Washington, D.C. only 17 times, according to the fake news media. I was in 17 times. I never stayed over. And you don't know people. You rely on other people to give you names, and then you realize the people you relied on weren't so good. Now, we had great people, but we also had some where I wouldn't have used them had I known. Now I know everybody, and I think we're going to really turn things around fast. We have no choice, otherwise we're not going to have a country. And I really appreciate this. To me, it's been a lot of fun being with you. You're an amazing guy. You've done an incredible job and a great inspiration to people, a great inspiration. And I hope you keep going and just continue to do well. And we're going to have a big election coming up, and I think November 5th will be the most important day in the history of our country. I think that election will be the most important election, and I think it'll end up being maybe the most important day in the history of our country, because if we don't win, I just feel so sorry for everybody.
No, I think we're at a fork in the road of destiny of civilization, and I think we need to take the right path, and I think you're the right path. So I think that's what it comes down to.
Thank you very much, Elon. It's a great honor, and we'll do it again sometime. And it's been really fun, and I hope you got a lot of viewers. I hear you got a lot, but I hope you got a lot. I know you got a lot of them. So I appreciate it. I'll see you soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Elon. Thank you very much. Bye.
Got a lot. Okay. That was pretty boring. Yeah, I'm barely awake, man. I mean, this is disappointing, but at the same time, not surprising, really. And they're just basically talking in circles and really nothing of any substance. And once again, I mean, they just talk about the typical talking points, talk trash about Kamala Harris, but really don't get into the nitty gritty of things, on why things are the way they are. And they don't talk about, I mean, obviously, Trump is an Israel fan, so that's a problem. Yeah, the campaign, in my opinion, isn't really going the way it should be. I think it's struggling. I think that they're not talking about communism and how communism has taken over. I don't think they're really getting into the crux of the problem, really what's happening to America and who who and what is controlling things. And until you get into that and really discuss those types of things like APAC and foreign control of our election process, I mean, Cory Bush and Jamal Bowman essentially being kicked out of office because of dollars coming from Israel, and the crime and everything that we're dealing with, the censorship that we're dealing with. Why is it? It's a criminal faction. It's a communist revolution. It's Bolshevism 2.0, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I think, unfortunately, Elon's not the greatest interviewer. The space, just Kazan, I don't. You came in late. I mean, it was like, I guess, what was it, like at least a half an hour to an hour. I think it was an hour late getting started because the whole thing was crashed. They blamed it on a DDoS attack. I just don't think they had it, everything set up properly before they started the spaces. And so it was late, and once again, it was just kind of a tired thing. But I'm going to cut it out for the night, and I have made the decision to go every Thursday night at 9:00. So I'm going to do a show every Thursday at 9. Start small, because trying to do it every single night of the week is going to be impossible. And then maybe a show or two on the weekend, but at least consistently on a Thursday night at 9. Then start that way and kind of go from there. So those of you who are on right now, if you're able to do that, just mark your calendars, and hopefully I'll be able to see you. Thanks, Crush. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. But yeah, definitely, if you can, mark those calendars, and then also those of you who are on different platforms, let's see if we can't get you over to Rumble and X. I appreciate everybody following me, but at some point I have a feeling YouTube's going to end up kicking me off, I would imagine, at some point, but we'll see. But thank you all for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Kazan, good to see you. And we will see you Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. See you then.